live right now. All right. I believe we are live because the button has been pushed. What is going on, everybody? I am Randall Thor 19, the man with the million. And this is the Xbox 2 podcast that I do every single week, most of the time. Of course, last week was the exception with my co-host, of course, as always, Jez Corden, or as he's calling himself on Twitter these days, Jesident Evil of Windows Central fame. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, man. Rock and roll, same old, working, writing. But now it's Friday, so I'm chilling like a villain, I guess. What how you been? How you been, man? You might want to tell people
it's
why didn't we do a show last week? I can't even remember.
Yeah. I mean, that was all my fault. So I think I posted on Twitter. It was basically a tale of two different days. Like, we could have done it on Friday, but I misjudged. I had to take Shakespeare to the vet, right? Because he ripped out one of his nails. So I had to go to the vet on Friday, and I went at like 10:30, 11. I'm like, this will give me enough time. Surely there's not going to be that many people here waiting. But there were. There were a ton of people, and I literally waited 5 hours to see the vet. So when it became like pretty apparent that 2:00 was coming around and I wasn't going to be home anytime soon, I DM'd you and I'm like, there's no way this can happen today, right? Which is why we didn't do it on Friday. But he's all good. He's the cone's all off. His paw's all good. It's just everything's good. But like I was like, surely if I go at 11:00, I'll be back by 2. But no, that wasn't the case. I didn't get home till like 4:30. So yeah, and then Saturday, I did not sleep well at all whatsoever. And when I woke up to kind of set up the podcast, I was just so exhausted that I couldn't do the show. Because I know a lot of people might think podcasting is super easy, but it does take a lot out of you. You gotta be on point for 2 hours, hour and a half, 3 hours, however long the show is. You just gotta be in constant like energy mode, and I was just completely drained. I just didn't have it in me to do the show.
Especially because we do it live too.
Yeah, we do it live. It's not pre-recorded. Can't take breaks. So I was just in that mood where it's just like, it would be a bad show if we put it on, and you guys deserve a really good show. So I was just, I'm like, I can't do the show. And I told you about it. And I literally just went back to bed. I went back to bed and I slept for 9 hours. That's how exhausted I was. So some people were saying, you played Returnal, but you didn't do the show. It was like, I did play Returnal, but I literally, after I said we weren't doing the show on Friday or on Saturday, I literally went to bed for 9 hours and woke back up. It was like 10 p.m. And yeah, so, sometimes you just got to take breaks from stuff, but that's why there was no show last week. And I really wish we would have did it because there was a lot of cool stuff we could have talked about. I mean, you leaked the game, Jez. You know what I mean?
Did I?
You leaked Dragon, which would have been super interesting to talk about. Yeah.
Do you like my dragon impression?
Yeah, it was very good. A lot of people. I remember when you were teasing that, and where you've been teasing that for like 2 months at this point. A lot of people were like, "Is it Scalebound?" And I don't know how many times I had to tell people, "No, it's not Scalebound." Or is it Game of Thrones related? It's like, no, But we'll definitely be talking about that a little bit later on. I mean, we have a ton of topics here. I mean, the Project Dragon stuff, Coalition maybe working on a new IP, Lucasfilm working with Xbox on a Star Wars game, FPS Boost, the good old, why is the discussion around Xbox Game Pass strictly about profitability? Like, I honestly hate that when you talk about Game Pass, like the detractors will say, what doesn't make any money? And it's like, one, you don't know shit. And I'm not saying I know anything either, But like, why isn't the discussion about the type of games that Microsoft is trying to get? Like how often games leave the service, like how it's actually good for developers. But no, it seems to be that there's this huge debate, and it's structured around this idea that maybe it may not be making Microsoft any money. It's absolutely absurd, and we're going to talk about that more. Epic versus Apple is going on, and that has given us some juicy details on a lot of different things. Tim Sweeney is he's definitely not making a lot of friends. Right? Yeah, that's for sure. Forza Horizon 5 information, new PS5 in the works, Sunset Overdrive 2 coming, which you angered some people with your tweet, Jez. You angered people.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
I was in a combative mood that day.
You definitely were, because you were putting stuff out there that I was kind of like, man, Jez, you really want people to, to come at you. You're dropping some spicy takes on Twitter. So, but I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I see we have a large crowd already. We got Welf Wiggum. We got the one and only Colt Eastwood, my good friend, who also is finally getting into the podcast game. If you didn't know, he debuts his podcast on Monday, Jez.
Oh, wow. Xbox Newscast, right?
The Xbox Newscast. And you know what? I was talking to him about it. We're not good enough to be guests on the show.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? It broke my heart when I asked him. I was like, hey, Cole, can I be on the show? And he just was like, you're a fake insider. Like, you don't, why would I want you on my show? And I'm like, oh, man. Okay, well,
Wow. Well, Colt is like, if you're a millionaire YouTuber, Colt's a billionaire YouTuber. So
yeah, I mean, Colt is a trillionaire YouTuber.
That's how it was, man. There's always a bigger fish, bro.
That's true. We got Lethal Papa, we got Pizzatarian, we got Pong, Soul, got Stodgy Caesar, Gunstar, Fail Pyromancer's here. What's going on, buddy? Man, there's a whole bunch of people here. We appreciate everyone who has tuned into the show. And let's see, Sin Vendetta. He says, happy Friday, Rand and Jez. Congrats on the 45 pounds down, Jez. That's right. You told that to me today, which is huge congrats. Great job on smashing your weight loss goals, Rand. Hope your fitness journey is going great as well. Not really. I kind of fell off of it at the holidays. There was just too much shit going on. But I'll have to get back on it soon enough. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Starfield, I was quoted by a whole bunch of different websites, and they got stuff wrong, and I was pissed about it. You might actually have a rant a little bit later on. Halo Infinite has this people have this if Halo Infinite doesn't like cure cancer and fix the homeless issue in the US, it seems like people are just going to be disappointed in the game. Like, there's stuff coming out about it, and it's crazy. I mean, we have a whole bunch of stuff here to talk about. So if you guys could do us a favor, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share this out on social media. Subscribe if you're new. All that good stuff. But I know you just put out a review, Jez.
I did.
About Resident Evil 8. And you said some pretty good things about it before the show, how you feel it's perhaps your favorite Resident Evil game of all time. Just tell the people some of your thoughts about it.
I wouldn't say it's my personal favorite, because there's a huge nostalgia factor with Resident Evil 2 that I have that no modern game could possibly penetrate, potentially. But I do think it's one of the best overall, looking at it from an outside, non-nostalgic perspective. I just love the game. I'm playing through it again, second time now, because there's loads of post-launch content, new game plus, unlock special weapons, unlock unlimited ammo, play on higher difficulties, stuff like that, and you can run through it again and again. Kind of like how Resident Evil 5 was and some of the other Resident Evil games. Like, Resident Evil 5 wasn't the best Resident Evil game, but it sure was fun playing through on insane difficulty with the infinite ammo rocket launcher. And Resident Evil Village is kind of like that. But I felt like it was kind of... I saw some takes that were like, it's the story's a bit crazy and it's not very scary and stuff like that. But I kind of felt like Resident Evil Village, it goes through the last 25 years of Resident Evil history and sort of it touches on every single game in some way. There's like the Resident Evil 4 influence with the vendor and the loot and stuff. and on the village in general, the sort of villages. There's a whole section which reminded me of like the morgue sort of sections in Resident Evil 2. And there's a section which is just almost feels like a homage to PT. Like they really crank up the fear factor, and Capcom's just like, we can still do scary if we want to. Look, we'll show you. And people who've played it will know what I'm talking about. There's one section in this game that might be the scariest out of all of Resident Evil. That I was just kind of like taken aback by how messed up it was. I was just like, how could they possibly do this in a game? But there is some really messed up stuff in it that had me like, WTF constantly. And but yeah, sure, it's more action oriented. Like Ethan remarks at the start of the game, I had military training from Chris. I can move, and he does move faster. He's more agile. Like when he stabs with a knife, he actually, there's almost a martial arts style to it now. He can parry attacks like Chris in the Resident Evil 7 DLC. So like, but they actually wove that into the story to some degree, noting that Chris gave him military training or whatever. So I thought that was like, a nice touch. It's almost like they knew people would complain about that, so they added a story reason for it. But the game just has great characters. It has amazing visuals. It has some really cool set pieces. It has some great boss battles. It has some really cool replayability. The Mercenaries mode's awesome. I just love it. And it's just like, it was such a pleasant surprise after Resident Evil 3 Remake, which I thought was like, it just wasn't up to par. It wasn't what I expected. I was hoping like I'd get more out of Resident Evil 3's remake. But, they made up for it with this, Resident Evil Village. I think it's a great game, and I highly, highly recommend it.
That sounds amazing. Like I didn't start it last night because I wanted to make sure I was nice and rested for the podcast, so I'll be starting it tonight. But you've got me super pumped for it. I love Resident Evil. I even liked Resident Evil 3 Remake. I kind of knew it was going to be more action-orientated, so I was digging it, but like I love Resident Evil. If you had to talk about favorite franchises, like Resident Evil is among, definitely in the top 10. Is it in the top 5 potentially? And I've only seen one trailer for Resident Evil 8, the original trailer. I think Sony showed at one of their PS5 events, and I've pretty much been on media blackout since. So I'm pretty much unspoiled on the game. And I just cannot wait to dive into it, man. I'm so excited. Are you playing it on with ray tracing on or ray tracing off? What would you recommend on that if you have a Series X?
So I'm playing it with ray tracing on. I reviewed it on PC because the PC codes came in earlier, and immediately I started getting these like cyberpunk PTSD flashbacks where I'm like, oh god, they're giving me a PC code and not a console code. Is the console version broken again? But thankfully no. It runs great across everything from what I've seen. I played it at 1080p on an RTX 2070 on PC with ray tracing enabled. Absolutely stunning game. Like, just probably one of the most beautiful, most well optimized game. The RE engine is just kind of special. It's like a really, really good engine. On Xbox, I'm playing it with ray tracing on. It still maintains 60 frames per second throughout the most of the game. In some of the outdoor areas, ray tracing does introduce some performance degradation, especially if like the light streaming through trees or something like that. You can notice the frame rate dipping a bit, but honestly, it's not bad at all. And most of the game's in interior locations anyway, and in rock solid 60 frames, 4K, ray tracing looks great. Honestly, might be one of the best looking games out there right now. But yeah, I truly, truly loved it. And it's funny you mentioned like favorite franchises and stuff like that, because like as I get older and video game industry gets more mature, like after Resident Evil 5 and especially Resident Evil 6 and then the Revelations 2 and stuff like that, Resident Evil went from being one of my favorite franchises to being sort of a franchise that I considered basically dead. Like
Jeez.
I thought I really hated Resident Evil 6, and Resident Evil Revelations was kind of like fun and self-referential almost. I played it in co-op, and I just kind of felt like they were banking on the Resident Evil name at this point, and they weren't really serious about it anymore. But Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village have been such a breath of fresh air, and the shows they really take the franchise seriously again. And I'd say it's like up there with my favorite franchises at the moment again. Like I went back and after completing Village, I bought all the DLC for Resident Evil 7 that I missed and went through and played those as well, which are great, by the way. Did you try in the Resident Evil 7 DLC?
I haven't. I know. I didn't try any of the Resident Evil 7 DLC. I just never got around to it. I do own all the DLC. I just never played it. I just never.
Honestly,
I think it just came out too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I got all the achievements in 7, like beating it on the hardest difficulty and like beating it in under 4 hours and only opening up the chest like 3 times. But then when the DLC came out from it, I already had like moved on to play other stuff. Now we do have a question from the one and only Neo GameSpark. Thank you, brother. He says, Jez, or just in general, will there be tall lady appreciation in the stream? So what about Lady? What's her name? Lady Dimitrescu, the one that everybody wants to have step on them or whatever. You know?
Yeah. So the U is silent for everyone who's listening to this.
So were you horny? Were you horny on Maine, essentially?
I don't know, man. Like she's a bit scary for me. But you know, I just love the memes. Did you see what I posted on Windows Central Gaming tweets earlier?
I did, yeah, I did. I saw it.
Someone made a Master Chief Lady Dimitrescu art piece where she's picking up Master Chief by the neck. So funny. There's like it's just become such a meme. And honestly, she's not a huge part of the game. It's like she's like but she'd become this massive meme, but like no spoilers, but she's you know, she's not, I mean, I guess she's not really one of the main characters overall. I mean, she's a big part of the game, but not like the biggest part of the game. But it's just been so much fun. Like it's nice to have a game just launch and there's no major issues. Everyone's just having fun with it, and it's just all been positive, it feels like. I mean, there, like I say in my review, like without giving away spoilers, there are some things where it's kind of like I was like thinking they could have done this instead. It would have made so much more sense. Like I wish I'd just like had the opportunity to email one of the writers and been like, you could do this instead. It would make way more sense and be way cooler. But you know, sometimes Resident Evil's always been a bit silly, I guess, in its delivery. Like a lot of people, I often see this where people are like, oh, the old games made so much more sense, and I'm kind of like,
did they really? Though?
I mean, you still use like herbs to heal grievous injuries and stuff like that. Did they really make that much more sense? But you know, it is what it is. It's Resident Evil. They have a lot of fun with it, and everything is explained in the game. You know, if you read the lore, if you read the in-game text files, even the crazy stuff is explained to some degree. But yeah, is it a bit silly, a bit B-movie? Yeah. But is it super badass? Yeah. So I'm kind of happy to just let them go with it at this point. It's a video game, you know.
Yeah.
So I loved it. Highly recommend it. Even if you're like squeamish about horror games, I think you could get through this. Even if you play it on easy, maybe if you don't want to like, you know, deal with the fear, I really do think you could get through this. You know, even if you're like someone who's particularly squeamish, I highly recommend it. Loved it, and also play the Resident Evil 7 DLC because that's also great.
All right.
You get to play as in one of them you get to play as Chris, and he has a machine gun. He's a badass and stuff. And in the other DLC, you get to play as Jack Baker's brother, who punches zombies to death, and it's like a beat 'em up, and it's actually really good. So
Resident Evil 7 was an amazing game. Like I loved Resident Evil 7, and I was a little bit disappointed to hear that 8 wasn't as horror focused as 7 was. That it's a little bit more actiony, but I'm sure I'll enjoy the game just
it has
as much.
Its moments. Trust me,
it
definitely has its moments.
Gotta give a shout out to Welf Wiggum for becoming the newest member of the channel. Thank you very much. Dovakin89 says, can't play Resident Evil 8 because those are 7-second immersion breakers. Yeah, there was, Digital Foundry did their analysis, and, there was some, I guess the Series X has, like, longer load screens than the PS5.
I haven't seen, I mean, the game loads when it boots up, but...
Yeah. But I've seen,
I haven't, like, in-game, they use these, like, there's, like, squeezing through a hole or whatever to load a new area. But they haven't cut those out of the PlayStation 5 version, so I haven't seen any loading screens really.
So yeah, I can't wait to play Resident Evil 8. I'm glad that you loved it. And I probably will be finishing it this weekend, and I'll talk a little bit on my thoughts about it next week. Flame says he just wants Halo to bring... I just want Halo to bring my kids back. I don't know what that means. I just want Halo to be good. That's all I care about. We have Tony Art saying, if Halo Infinite doesn't solve world hunger, the media will make it look like a flop and give it a 30 in Metacritic. I don't know about that, but yeah, I understand. People want Halo to be good. JC says, for Switch, Witcher 3 or Skyrim, trying to decide. I don't know. I would play both of those on either a PC or a Series X or a PS5, personally. Do you have any input on that one? What he should play on the Switch, Jez?
For what, sorry?
If he should play Witcher 3 or Skyrim on the Switch.
I haven't played either on the Switch, to be honest. I would say play them on PC or Xbox.
You're right.
unless you want to play it portable, it's not gonna look great, and it's not gonna run great either. So.
And my man Punka just says, much love for my dudes Rand and Jez. Thank you. So yeah, I can't wait to dig into Resident Evil, but I did, and I know this is, some people are probably, I haven't really looked at chat too much because a lot of things going on here, but I got gameplay up of Returnal. I finished Returnal over the weekend. 18 hours, 15 deaths, and man, Returnal definitely had a lot of discussion going on, Jez. Did you notice any of it online about $70 games and patches that delete your save file, or the PS5 crashing, and obviously it's a roguelite, so there's no way to save. Did you keep abreast of all the controversy that was surrounding Returnal when it came out this past week?
I did look at it a bit. I didn't really like, it's ultimately not my wheelhouse. Like, as I said here many times before, I don't cover PlayStation stuff, so I sort of like when it comes to cognitive load, I often push PlayStation 5 out of my brain because I'm like, I don't have the brain power to keep all of track of all these things. So sometimes when it comes to PlayStation 5 stuff, I often just don't comment because I don't know the full ins and outs of everything going on. That being said, there were a lot of people that were upset, and I did see them on the timeline. You were one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying the game crashed and you lost all your progress. Sounds to me like a simple autosave or save and quit feature that, kept your progress at a certain place would have mitigated some of this, maybe. But I haven't played the game, so I don't know to what extent that would impact the gameplay experience.
Well, I'm not really sure how having a save system would help from crashes, right? Game crashes, the game crashes.
But if it autosaved after, I don't even know how the game's structured. Like, if it autosaved
it's a roguelite where if you die, you start at the beginning.
Well, couldn't it autosave at a specific level or something like that?
Well, okay, without spoiling it too much, it actually does. So you don't have to beat the whole game in one go. It does have a checkpoint where if you reach a certain level, you always start from that level.
So when your game crashed,
mm-hmm.
didn't you go back to that level?
I did, yeah.
So what's the big issue?
I mean, the big issue. I think the issue for a lot of people is that in that run particular, it was a 3-hour run, and I was at the end of the game for the first time, and it crashed. Which means when I started the game up, I was back at whatever level you start on, and I just had lost 3 hours of my time. Is basically it. I just lost 3 hours of my time. I didn't.
A level takes 3 hours to do.
Well, no, it depends because and for the record, I really like Returnal a lot. Obviously, I destroyed it this weekend. I mean, you can get into the whole reviews. Is it a really hard game? Did I think it was really hard? Not really. And I'm not tooting my own horn, and I've always said I'm not like God's gift to gamer, but I didn't think it was particularly difficult. I mean, there is that sense when you first start the game where you kind of see how the enemies react to you, and how they attack, where, yeah, okay, you make some mistakes, you get hit, and then you die. I think a lot of people, I don't know, I can only really speak from my experience, but I don't really think the game is that difficult, personally. And the way the game's structured, Jez, is like you have these levels, right? And your whole goal is to get to the end to, fight a boss, so to speak. And then once you beat the boss, you can kind of move on to the next world, right? So you're in World 2. And if you die in World 2, well, obviously you start back at World 1, right? But there are, like, once you open up the path to World 2, you can kind of just beeline right to World 2. You don't have to play through World 1 if you don't want to. So you can make the runs a little bit quicker, but I always cleared out each of the worlds to increase my health count, to get better, artifacts, stuff like that. But what the game does incredibly well is the movement is sublime. The way Celine moves around the map, how fast she moves, how the dash works. You can pretty much dash through every enemy attack except for the purple ones. And then you combine that with like the combat, which is pretty. It's not that in depth. Like, you don't a lot, since the game's more focused on you avoiding enemies and dashing around. It's very much an arcade game. You don't really have to aim like you would in a first-person shooter. Some of the stuff it really has like this, like, really heavy auto aim, where it's more about you moving around and avoiding stuff than it is about you aiming at things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
So, but yeah, I was pissed off because the game froze, and it only happened once. I didn't lose my save because I was already finished with the game. The bigger issue, I think, for a lot of people is it's $70, right? And I honestly really like the game. I almost say I love the game. Like, if I would have ranked my favorite games of this year so far, it'd be Returnal, Hitman 3, and It Takes Two. And I was thinking about if, everybody here in chat, like, if they asked me, because I've gotten a ton of questions about it over Twitter and DMs, like, would I recommend Returnal to people? And I'm not sure I could, because it's such a niche game, right? Where I'd have to ask you, like, do you like roguelikes? And you'd be like, well, no. Well, then I'd be like, well, the answer is no, right? But then there's like, also, how long do you have to play? And because I've had someone actually DM me, he's like, I only have an hour to play every night. I'd be like, well, no, Returnal's not for you. Because if you only have an hour to play, you're definitely going to it takes a lot longer to get through, a run than an hour. So, like, I wouldn't recommend it. So even though I really enjoy the game, I'm not sure it's worth $70 for people. Honestly, I know everybody's different, but that's where this whole crux of this argument kind of starts from. Is the game worth $70? And as much as I liked it, I'm not really sure it is. I honestly think if the game was $50 or $40, I think it's that would be a more appropriate price. I just for what the game is and for the type of game it's trying to be, I don't know if $70 was the right choice for this. You know what I mean?
Do you think one thing I keep seeing on social media is people comparing it to Recore? Can you explain that?
I mean, people compare it to Recore because they do look similar, right? It's a girl. They're both dashing around. The game, like I said, it's not so much about aiming. It's more about avoiding, like, enemy fire. So, like, in Recore, you locked onto an enemy and just fired. And in Returnal, you don't lock onto an enemy per se, but the aiming is pretty loose, and a lot of the guns will sort of just auto target. So I can see a visual similarity between the two just from that aspect, but other than that, no, they're nothing alike. It just visually you can kind of, like, the type of guns they both use. The third person and dashing around and stuff, sure, I can see the comparison, but gameplay wise, not so much, but I mean, I don't know what else to say about the game. I really liked it. And I know people are like, "Ew, Rand, how could you like?" I mean, I don't know. Like, it was a lot of fun. You know, I had a great time playing it. I liked the sci-fi story, even though at the end of the day, the story was, I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if to take it literally or metaphorically, or literally and metaphorically. There's a lot of unanswered questions there, and I don't really like it when you know, companies leave some of their story that they tease throughout instances of the game, and then kind of being like, well, what do you think? It's like, I understand that's good for discussion and forum posts and Twitter threads, being like, what do you think? What do you think in Returnal? Did it actually all happen or whatever? But I kind of more would lean towards a definitive answer, because I talked about the game with my buddies, and it was just like, everybody had a different read on it, which is interesting, because everybody had a different interpretation of what was going on in the game. But at the end of the day, nobody could come to a satisfying conclusion. You know, everybody had, you know, good points towards their own agenda of what they thought happened. But it was one of those things where it was just like, I wish it was a little bit more on the nose. At least you could, you know, you could have a better discussion with that. But I mean, there's a lot going on with the game. I don't know. Sometimes I feel, I don't know, like, there's a certain group of Xbox fans who will always, no matter whatever Sony puts out, they'll always try to downplay it for whatever reason. And
it works both ways, doesn't it?
Well, of course it works both ways. But because Xbox hasn't released anything in a little bit, you know, Sony puts out Returnal, and then you have some Xbox fans that are like, oh, the game, you know, isn't very good, or $70 is trash, and all these things. Like, and I know it always happens, but I don't know, man. Like, I hate seeing that shit. I honestly don't even know what to say sometimes about it. Like, I get disappointed sometimes when I go on Twitter and I see, like, the discussion around stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so do I. You know, it's one of the reasons I was making combative posts the other day, because I think it doesn't matter, like, what company a dev is affiliated to. Ultimately, and to add the caveat, if a company tries to sell you a product and it's not what they advertised, and it's broken even, then yeah, you have every right to be pissed, and you have every right to bash them. And as journalists, we have every, you know, not every right, it's our job to call them out on it. Don't have a problem with that. But the thing is, there's a lot of people who, they're not really interested in, you know, the actual critical discussion of a game. It's more about just scoring points, bashing people, arguing, fighting, and all that sort of stuff. And that's when I sort of, like, you know, I feel like it's not right when all the devs wanted to do is make a fun experience for people, and you know, get into this industry thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna make a cool game, and hopefully people are gonna enjoy it. Like, that's what that mentality comes from. And then people just sort of take that, and they're all nasty about it and use it in their console wars and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's always going to happen. But and at the same time, I'm not necessarily against banter either. I think it's fun to banter back and forward, as long as it's, like, kind spirited in a sort of football sports kind of way. But some people get really nasty with it, take it too far, make everyone look bad, and make the gaming industry look immature, you know? So I guess it is what it is. But, you know, and we'll see it from the other side when Xbox.
I know it'll definitely, well,
at some point.
100%. It always happens every single time a game is released. You know, some Xbox fans feel they need to protect Xbox and, you know, crap on PlayStation, and then PlayStation fans feel they need to do the same. It's just, like, never ending. And I'm just here for the games. Like, I paid $70 for Returnal, and as much as I do really like the game, yeah, I think it's a little bit overpriced. You know what I mean? I do think that. And that's not, like, someone is like, well, Rand's just an X-bot, right? He's just saying that because no, I spent my own money on this. I beat the game twice. I beat the game freaking twice, right? Like I didn't just beat it once. I went through it and got the secret ending by collecting everything. That's how much I enjoyed the game. And I'm telling you guys how much I'm enjoying the game. I literally said it's my favorite game of the year. A little bit above Hitman 3 and It Takes Two. And I'm still telling you that I don't think it's worth $70. I think it's too expensive for what it offers. And I couldn't really recommend it to a lot of people because for a lot of people, this game will be too difficult. They may not have the patience to run through every new area and collect all the health upgrades, try to get the better guns and use them to unlock the better perks because they'll die and they'll start over. And trust me, when I was playing through the game and I was 2 hours into a run and I died, yeah, it's a little bit demoralizing. You're like, really? I gotta start all the way back here, but I was doing really good. Like, I get that. But, I got
it's about the time investment too, you said. Right?
Well, it's the time investment, but I'm just going to say, like, I'm kind of used to this. Like, I've played so many games. I have a million gamer score for a reason. I didn't get a million gamer score when it was basically handed out like candy like it is now, right? I've played a whole bunch of hard games on the hardest difficulty. So, like, patience is a virtue when it comes to this stuff. I have a lot of patience when it comes to games. So dying and then starting back at the beginning, while it is demoralizing, I was like, I'll just do it again because I don't know, it's just kind of the way I am. I know a lot of people, there is this kind of, thing. It was like a lot of people like, oh, Rand just plays Barbie games for a million gamer score. He just plays all these super easy games or whatever. And I'm like, even though I have played that stuff, you used to see some of the games that I played on the hardest difficulties to get to the points I had because it wasn't like it is now. So when I say Returnal wasn't that difficult, I mean it. Like, I understand that someone else might find it really difficult, and I understand why they could, especially if you're not really, you don't play these type of games very well. But it's an interesting discussion because it all returns back down to the $7 price tag. Like, what did this game do differently to be like, instead of $60, it's $70? And then to have the problems that they had at launch. Like, where'd that extra $10 go? Like, to have a save feature that basically deleted people's saves, to have all the the problems with the game crashing on PlayStation 5s. Like, if you're asking for more money, then people are going to also be more critical of you if the game you're putting out is going to have problems, right? I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. So if you're asking for $70 for this game, which is a lot of money, and you have these issues, people are going to be upset, and a lot of people are rightfully upset, Anyways, I don't know. I kind of wish I talked more about this last week when people were actually, were like, oh, like Returnal, but I don't know what else I can say. And I get the irony of an Xbox podcast talking about Returnal and having as the gameplay, but I do play pretty much everything that comes out. So Dovakin says, we understand that y'all content creators like to be neutral, but the Xbox community had a very rough last gen. The other side of the media were brutal. I mean, I've never said all right. I don't know how many times I have to say this. I'm not neutral whatsoever. And I think everybody who actually listens to this channel and has been with it for a long time understand that I am not a neutral person. I am an Xbox fan. I want to see Xbox succeed. I just don't need to see Xbox succeed at the expense of PlayStation or Nintendo. I don't need to praise Xbox while at the same time shit all over everybody else. That's not the type of person I am. I want Xbox to be great for Xbox. I'm not a neutral. I'm an Xbox fan more than I'm a PlayStation fan. And obviously, like, I don't care about Nintendo one bit. So this whole thing of content creators being neutral, like, I'm not neutral. I every time someone says to that, like in your post, like, I'm not neutral whatsoever. I'm an Xbox fan first and foremost. I mean, I'm a gaming fan overall. Like, I'm a gaming fan first and foremost. But if you talk about my preferences, it's Xbox way ahead of PlayStation. I just don't need to hate on everybody else to make Xbox look good, because that's what a lot of people do. I don't know. Do you feel similar to that, Jez?
Yeah, I'm completely the same way. I have no intention of buying a PlayStation 5 ever. I think it's huge, it's ugly, and I don't want it in my office, frankly. And I'd rather just play on PC and Xbox. So, I I've even put my Switch into storage recently because I barely ever use that either. And whenever I play Switch, I have to play an Xbox Series X 4K 60, and you go back to like 1080p at most, 30 frames at most. It's kind of like, yeah, I'm over this now. I'm over this, So, yeah, I would say I'm not neutral either in that capacity. But like you, there's a sort of value in acknowledging what the competition's doing and what the competition is doing right, while also acknowledging the stuff that Xbox does bad. And it comes from a place of passion for the brand and wanting them to do better. You want Xbox to do better because at the end of the day, we're not Xbox shareholders or employees. We are consumers, and we want them to do better for us, So, and for you guys, frankly, when I went really hard to bat at Xbox about the whole languages thing, so I used to get DMs all the time from people from Korea and from China, and still get DMs from people from some of these countries where they're like, Microsoft doesn't care about, their fans unless they're in America or the UK, and that struck a chord with me, So like I went to bat really hard to get Xbox's language features improved, and they now actually have a team dedicated to it, so I heard, and we've started to see some new features hit the Xbox store, which show the localizations, subtitles, and what languages all of that stuff appears in, and it leads to a better product. When you're critical of Xbox, it leads to a better product, which leads to us getting better stuff, which is what it should be all about. If you just cheerlead all the time and ignore the bad stuff they're doing, we'd still be in 2013 trying to defend Kinect, So,
I mean, there are some dudes. There are some dudes out there who will damage control literally anything Xbox does. There were dudes out there There were dudes out there trying to damage control when Microsoft was like $120 for Xbox Live Gold. I've seen it because I was tagged in a lot of that stuff. Like, no matter what, Xbox can do no wrong to some people, and PlayStation is the devil, and vice versa. Like, it's just a never-ending thing, and some people will just never grow up. They'll never grow out of that whole console war phase. And some people do it for fun. Some people do it for trolling. That seems to be a big thing these days on Twitter. I think it's all just pathetic, personally. I don't care for the trolling. To me, it's I don't know. That's why I'm not really on Twitter much, honestly, because I get on there and I look and I'm like, oh yeah, now I realize why I'm not really on Twitter, because it's all just the discussion around games and Xbox and PlayStation it's just tainted. You can't really have a good discussion with a lot of people, or at least in a social space like that, because somebody will come in with just a dumb response. But Skate says PS5 the type of console not support saves cross-gen or in-game. Chaos Might says, can't wait for Halo Infinite. Game's looking good. Also, would love to see Starfield at E3 for a 2021 release. I mean, so would I, man. So would I. What else we got here? I think that's pretty much it. Now, yeah, so I mean, you know what? Enough about Returnal. I really like the game. It's my favorite game of the year so far. Take that for what you will. I don't think it's worth $70. It's definitely niche. I couldn't really recommend it to anybody because I would need to know, your preferences. So that's just my thoughts on Returnal. Kendrick Star says, Kinect is awesome. Leave my Kinect alone. Laugh out loud. No, Kinect was trash. Kinect was garbage. And Brett says, Jez, any news on Koei Tecmo? E3 plans, Xbox exclusives, or anything?
I don't know a great deal about. No, honestly, I don't know much about Koei Tecmo. I know they've got a lot of fans, and rightfully so. They make some cool games, but I haven't heard anything. Certainly don't have any contacts there. So, but that's something I can look into, right? I guess
that is.
I just want to. Actually, I completely lost what I wanted to say. I just wanted to add like a caveat on this whole thing. Like, there is plenty of things to criticize PlayStation about too, and Nintendo. Like, I was literally just thinking earlier how, for example, Nintendo has a cloud save system, but it's only available for certain games. If you want cloud saves for your Pokemon, you have to pay an extra subscription. I don't know if you're aware of this, Rand. They have a separate cloud save subscription service just for Pokemon, which is absurd. It's price gouge. It's gouging the fan base, basically. And then I've seen a lot of the whole thing about Returnal and the cloud saves and stuff, and the saves being lost. It's shone a light on the fact that PlayStation doesn't have NVMe expansion storage yet, and you can't use extra expansion devices.
And cloud saves on PlayStation are locked behind PlayStation Plus.
Exactly.
Well.
So everyone, no matter what fan you are, no matter what you are a fan of, you should criticize those companies and look at them critically because you want them to do better. If you're like a football team, criticize what the management's doing, and football fans do. Like anyone who's been paying attention to what's been going on with the European Super League recently, they'll know all about the protests that have been happening about their plans.
You mean soccer?
You have to ruin it, don't you, Rand?
Yeah.
You have to ruin it. But yeah, basically, just be a fan, but don't be a fanboy. That's where this argument ultimately falls. Let's move on.
Did you notice the hate that friend of the show Jeff Grubb got for his Returnal review? He became PlayStation enemy number 1. They were going after him. And it's funny, some of the people going after him will never beat Returnal. Like, a lot of these dudes cap for these games on Twitter, but will never be able to beat them because they're not good enough. And basically also because they just don't play games. That's a lot of, like, the Twitter gaming sphere thing. Like, how dare you give Returnal a 6? You ruined the Metacritic. These people that spend all day on Twitter who will never even really give the game more than an hour of their playtime. You know what I mean?
I did feel a bit for Jeff, and I think I actually said to him, "I'm glad I don't have to review some of these games."
It's just like, I don't understand, right? Like, obviously, I think the game's a lot better than what Jeff gave it, right? I read Jeff's review, and I played the game for myself, and I don't agree with Jeff's review, but, like, why would I care? Like, it's not that I don't care what Jeff thinks. Like, I think Jeff's a really smart guy, but Jeff's opinion in no way, shape, or form is going to impact my opinion on something. And I think people, like, forget that. Like, they're not confident enough in themselves. Like, they kind of got to see, like, what other people think. It's like, Jeff is Jeff. Jez is Jez, Rand is Rand. We're all gonna have our own thoughts on something. But if some reviewer out there gives a game that you like a lower review score, so that you have to go attack that person, like, are you not confident in your own opinion? For, like, you know what I mean? Like, what does it matter that Jeff or anybody else gave something a bad review? Like, let's imagine a hypothetical scenario where Halo Infinite comes out and it gets really good reviews and it's like an 88 on Metacritic, but there's this one review that's a 4 out of 10, right? But I think Halo Infinite's a 9 out of 10. I'm not going to give that review from that guy a second glance. I'm not even going to care because everybody's opinions don't matter to me. You know what I mean? And I know that maybe mean a little bit harsh. Like, there are people's opinions who matter to me, but you know whose opinion matters most to me? Me! Like, someone giving a game I like a bad review doesn't change anything about how I think about the game in any way, shape, or form. And
it also kind of highlights how review scores are so stacked at the higher end. If you give a game less than an 8, it means you hate it.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, that is true.
When really a 6 is above average, technically. It's so annoying how, like, I can give a headset review like 2 out of 5, 2 out of 10, for example, and that means I hate it. But I can also give it like a 5 out of 10, and that means it's like, oh yeah, it's okay for some people, but maybe not others. And that's totally fine when you're reviewing accessories. But if you're reviewing a game and it's anything below an 8, that means it's trash.
That means it's
just
bad.
So annoying. That's why I wish, if I had my way, I would get rid of review scores on Windows Central. But we can't because Google gives higher priorities to outlets that use their review score system. So we have to keep it in. And
Yeah.
I respect Jeff for having the balls to give a game less than 8 out of 10. Even though, like, if you read the full context of his review, he's not even saying it's a bad game. It's just, people don't read the review. They just look at the score.
I know, they
and
just see
then...
the score and they're
Yeah.
hurt that, the Metacritic was affected for this corporation that they have devoted their lives and their online presence to. Like, oh my god, it could have been an 88, but now it's an 86. How dare you have a different opinion than the majority? You know what I mean? Like, it's going to happen again for future games. And when Xbox puts out a really good game and there's a review, I mean, we already saw that happen. Remember when Forza Horizon 4 came out, and I think some reviewer gave it like a 4, and they trashed that person for it? Like, who cares? Like, that's the big thing with me. It's like, I don't understand like why people give so like credence to all these people. And it's like, well, everybody gave it a 9, but so and so gave it a 7. Let's go attack them. Like, it's especially the fact that a lot of these people hadn't even played the game yet, right? They're capping for a game they haven't even played. Who knows if they even like it? Lars says, in the last stream, we know you have a big dog, and what breed is it? It's a English Mastiff. Is Microsoft about to smack Sony like, what?
Dude, you should really post more pictures of your dog on Twitter.
I know, but
like, I don't care. Like, even if you don't post about games and you don't want to get involved in that discussion, just post pictures of your dog, man.
You like my dog? You like Shakespeare?
Yeah, I've been posting pictures of our
your
bird
birds.
cam.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Got a bird cam. It's
Is
so
Microsoft
cool.
about to smack Sony like Hulk smack Loki in Avengers? I mean, hopefully Xbox has a great E3 this year. That'd be great. That'd be amazing. Slow-mo, shout out to you, buddy. He says, I'm waiting for my emails to Phil demanding a Lost Odyssey remake to be leaked in this epic Apple court case. Yeah, a lot of stuff being leaked there. John G says, that's right, Rand. It's called soccer. Football is just as bad. Go Dallas Cowboys. Dallas. Go Chicago Bears. What is someone else says, Axel says, doesn't give a F what Jez thinks about Halo Infinite. That is true. I don't care what Jez thinks about Halo Infinite. I know,
Oh man.
and I'm sure we'll be talking about that later, right? And he's gonna be like, I told you. I'm like, I don't care. Go play Gears of War, Jez. Go slice people up. Go play Gears of War in a franchise that the Coalition is gonna be dropping like a bad habit soon enough because nobody plays it.
But dude, Gears of War doesn't have the cool pink sparkles gun.
Yeah. Brett says, is T2 developing exclusives for Xbox? T2, I think, is Take-Two. I recall seeing they signed such a deal last year. If so, is it BioShock, Borderlands, or a new IP? Take-Two really doesn't do exclusives. Like, Square Enix might or whatever. So, yeah, I don't think you'll see Take-Two do stuff. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't even really know the deal that you're talking about there, but yeah. Splat says
share price is all over the place at the moment. So I don't know. It's a when you said like Take-Two doesn't do exclusives, it's a weird market right now, man. It is a weird market.
Yeah. Splat says, I've been gaming for 35 years and my Xbox is the number one go-to machine. I will not buy a PS5. Xbox are covering everything I want and more. Bring me Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, Forza, and Halo. And Jonas says, go Seahawks. Okay. So
Seahawks.
Yeah. So now, you know what? Now I'm going to stop talking about Returnal and Resident Evil 8. Pizzatron says Rand throwing Gears under the bus. Well, that's because Jez is always throwing Halo under the bus. So I'm going to throw Gears under the bus. So we're going to get to some of the topics. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like button. And I'm going to start off with one that is kind of a continuation of the last podcast, and that's about Starfield. Starfield coming in 2021, ? Because, Jez, where do I even begin with this? I was pretty pissed, to be honest with you. We know there are certain people that listen to the show, and sometimes you, and most of the time it's you because I don't have any credibility. I'm just a YouTuber. I can just lie and make stuff up. But if the amazing Jez Corden says something that could be written for an article, there are certain people that listen that will write articles about it, which is always good for the podcast. People will check it out, right?
It's so much harder to write an article than it is to make a video, man.
That is true. Videos take
think of my poor fingers,
2 to 3
man.
hours, right? Vic says, "Who cares? Where's gameplay trailer, story trailer, anything Starfield?" I mean, presumably E3, right? So I just need to get this off my chest because when we talked about Starfield last, we talked about. I said that I know for 100% sure that it's an Xbox exclusive, which it is. And that Microsoft was trying their hardest to get it out this year. Now, a website ran with that and made up this whole, thing of, Xbox Insider says Starfield coming this year, right? And then because one website wrote about it, every website wrote about it. WCCF Tech, Game Rant, comicbook.com, like websites in Australia and the UK. I was getting people DMing me all the time. And like, I don't want that sort of attention because my issue with it is, number one, I didn't say it was coming this year. Like, if you want to look at what I definitively said, I said it's 100% an Xbox exclusive, right? Like, you can take that to the bank. That is what I definitively said. I did not say it was coming this year because I don't know if it's coming this year. All I had said was I had heard that Microsoft was trying to get it out this year, right? But the way these clickbait websites presented the information was that I said it was coming this year in a very similar way to how Jason Schreier kind of was just said something about it, right? So I just want to take the time to point out, being like, the reason I was upset about it was, one, I'm not an insider. I don't care what anybody says, like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, I've never called myself that. And two, if Starfield doesn't come out this year, people aren't going to be mad at Game Rant or WCCF Tech or any of these other websites for saying it. They're going to be mad at me. And they're going to come to me and be like, you said this. And I'll be like, no, I didn't, because they didn't read the headline, or they didn't read the story. They actually read the headline. I didn't say it was coming this year because I don't know if it is. All I said was that they were trying to get it to come out here. So that was my issue with it, because now everybody.
That's the game, pal. That's the game.
Now I don't care if it's the game. I don't care. That's why like, we joke around when you say stuff or whatever, right? I'm happy with that, but I don't understand why that was news in the first place. I don't get it, because I've been saying this since the beginning of the year, and suddenly now I say it again, and now suddenly it's news. Like,
it's funny how the good old news cycle works. Sometimes things get picked up, sometimes they don't. I don't think we covered what you said. Partially because it's a bit weird if I cover my own podcast. Maybe we did. I don't know. I can't remember. But it's just funny. Like, people are like thirsty for information this time of year. The hype's starting to build for E3, even though it's weird because of COVID or whatever. But this is the time of year where hype starts to build, typically, for that sort of stuff. So a lot of outlets are probably like, well, if Starfield's going to get revealed this year, we better start, pumping our SEO on this topic. So write every single rumor that you possibly can, because the more I mean, YouTubers do this too, because it's all Google, it's all their algorithm. So it's like, the more you write about a topic, the more Google thinks you're an authority on the subject. So if you cover every single rumor and people read it because they're hungry for information, it creates this sort of ripple effect where everyone has to write about it, or everyone is losing out on these SEO points, which boosts the ranking of in Google's magic algorithm stuff. So it is what it is, but at the same time, it's kind of like, yeah, it's like what you said, they're going to come at you now for stuff that they put out of context. But so I wouldn't worry, man, because at the end of the day, people forget, shit happens. Even if you did hear that it was coming this year, it could be delayed and at the last minute. Like, one of the games that I was teasing, actually, with the emoji teasers, mm-hmm. I heard literally the week after we discussed it on this show, it got pushed back, got delayed. So until the game has an official launch date, there is no way anyone can predict what's going to happen.
Well,
and even then, as we've seen
look,
from Cyberpunk and the likes,
I
even
was
that
just
you can't take.
I was just more upset at how it was misconstrued, because then you get there's a 13-page thread about it on Reset Era, and then there was people on Reset Era calling me a liar, right? Like I just made it up that it's ridiculous and stuff, and then it became well, if they're trying to get it out, that means the game's going to be buggy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they're not going to give it the time it needs, and it became this whole thing. And it's like Reset Era once again being trash that it is, right?
Yeah, the problem with forums like Reset Era is that they're full of people who just want to up their post count, so they overthink everything because they want to make a post, they want to contribute to the discussion, and they want to grow their authority on a topic and grow their standing. Yet they're doing so from behind like an anonymous position, so they can pretty much say whatever they want. They can be assholes and be like, I don't care about anyone. Look how much of an asshole I am, and look how cool I am that I can be such a dick to these people who put themselves out there to bring this information. So I put zero interest in Reset Era and zero authority on that forum because I just think it's just
right. But then look what happened with Jason Schreier. Someone asked him if he thought Starfield was coming this year, and he said no. And then a whole bunch of websites ran with Starfield not coming this year, says Insider. And Jason Schreier is like, what are you talking about? That's fake news. Someone asked for my personal opinion about it, and I said no. He doesn't expect a lot of games to hit 2021. I don't know. That's just. I guess as people just really are interested in finally understanding and hearing about that game, and people want Xbox games, Xbox exclusives to come sooner rather than later. So people are like, Starfield, sure, when's it coming? But yeah, I had to get off my chest. I just hate how it was misconstrued as I said it was coming this year when I didn't. And if it does happen, great. But if it doesn't, if it gets delayed to next year, then there's going to be definitely people who don't know what I've said, who just saw the headline, that are going to come into this chat while we do this show and say I was wrong, and then I don't know what I'm talking about, and I just don't want to deal with that bullshit. So, anyways, Paul says, Jez, please don't review Halo Infinite whenever it releases. Yeah, Jez, please don't review it. We actually want a good score coming from Windows Central. Have Miles Dampierre review it.
It'll be Brendan Lowry who reviews Halo Infinite, our Halo expert.
You can give a second opinion about how Halo Infinite's finally better than Gears.
I probably will do a second opinion that's unscored. We do that sometimes, so I probably will do a second opinion on Halo Infinite if I play it. But yeah, our scored review will be written by Brendan, who actually likes Halo, but he won't pull any punches if it sucks.
I mean, the truth is, you got to tell the truth. George says, Era thinks Microsoft was rushing Starfield. Careful, Rand. We don't care what Era thinks. Bunch of nobodies over there. Dovakin says, damn, Rand, you kicked my ass over there, but I guess I deserve it. Mad respect to Jez and you. I'll try to be better. Juicehead says, so on Starfield, you said the game's basically sort of finished. It's in bug squashing mode right now, QA stuff. Is that from a source? It's from what people have told me, yes. That... the game's pretty much complete. I mean, I don't know if it's 100% complete, but a lot of the stuff they're doing is exactly what I said. And that is from, people I talked to. And that's what they told me. Trey Duke says, the thing is you don't have to call yourself an insider. You have more inside information than the average consumer because of your platform. I think you're blowing this out of proportion. I just wanted to set people's expectations straight. And for myself... because a lot of websites were saying that I said it was coming out this year. I didn't say that. I said Microsoft was trying to get it to come out this year. If I knew for sure it was coming out this year, I probably would make a bet about it. Just like how I said, even though I don't know for sure, I am 100% positive that Starfield's an exclusive. And you know what? If it comes to PlayStation, when at the same time it comes to Xbox, you can come out here and tell me I'm wrong, because that I'm putting my name out on the line on that one. The release date of Starfield is something I honestly don't know. I don't know if it's this year or next year or 2023, but I'll just repeat it again. I heard that it was supposed to be coming this year, that they were trying to, it was intended to, but who knows if it does. It could be next year. But Jez, you tweeted about a whole bunch of emojis, right?
I did.
And we can't really talk about it. Well, we can, but one of the things you actually did leak is a new project called Project Dragon
Right.
between Xbox and IO Interactive. You tell us a little bit more about this, because we had been teasing this for a little bit of time on Twitter on the show, but you decided to finally tell people about it. So tell the people what Project Dragon is all about.
Do you like my dragon impression?
Yes, dragon impression is great.
Okay, so basically, Project Dragon is, and obviously, it's problematic. I've said on the show before, I don't like leaking game stuff. I don't like taking announcements away from the team. But at the same time, I have to compete with competitors who are also putting stuff out there. You know, we have a lot of Windows and Xbox blogs we have to compete with. Oh my God, lady, what's her name's just attacking me. So you know, it got to a point where a lot of people knew about this, and I'd heard like information and documents had emerged in the public sphere, and it kind of pushed me to a place where I was like, well, if I don't put this out there soon, someone else is going to, and you know, my boss is going to be mad at me for sitting on the information. So I kind of got into a situation where I couldn't keep a lid on it anymore. However, so we posted about it. Project Dragon, from what I've heard, is a major AAA game, a hugely ambitious, connected RPG sort of game, MMO-ish, I think. Maybe not full-blown MMO, maybe sort of like a connected RPG. I honestly don't know how ambitious they're going to go with the connected aspects of it. Is it going to be fully cloud-based, like, you know, World of Warcraft, or is it going to be something more like Outriders, which is like segmented off and then peer-to-peer? I honestly don't know. From what I saw, it is going to be a sort of cloud-based connected game. So like full-blown online sort of game, more like, you know, your Destiny and stuff like that, rather than this sort of like peer-to-peer based game like Diablo or Outriders. I don't want to give away too many details about the gameplay itself, because the games can hugely change between now and launch. For example, State of Decay was always imagined to be an MMO. And obviously, the first game was single player, the second game was peer to peer. Third game, hopefully, will be more connected, but, you know, and stuff like that. But games often get scaled back in development. Like Kingdoms of Amalur, famously, was supposed to be a World of Warcraft competitor.
It was supposed to be, but it wasn't.
Yeah, and it got scaled back over time as they realized making an MMO is actually quite complicated, and they, you know, scaled it back, and then it wasn't an MMO anymore. So anything could happen between now and launch, which is why I want to set expectations appropriately. This is all information that represents their vision before heading into a prototype stage, before heading into like the game design stage. This is their vision for a game that could look very different by the time it comes out. But as you can guess from the name Dragon, it's going to be a sort of medieval thing, and a sort of medieval fantasy kind of thing with you dragons and stuff like that. And to that end, you know, IO Interactive was on the record with GameIndustry.biz saying that we've spun up a third team to build a game that is something unusual for IO Interactive. So fantasy, like as far as I'm aware, they've not really dipped their toes into this before. It's really funny because someone pointed me at an old IO Interactive sort of pitch or something from like ages ago that referred to some kind of connected world fantasy game called Rex something or other. I can't remember what it was called, Rand. I'm talking about. But this is something that they said in the GameIndustry.biz interview that has been on the team's mind for a while. It's like a dream project for them and stuff like that. And it does seem to be that the identity of this game is out there because it's something they've talked about before. And I can't remember exactly what it's called, Rex something or other. But it does seem like they've explored this concept and whatever. And from what I understand, is that they're partnering with Microsoft for this to bring the game to PC and Xbox exclusively. And, you know, it's wildly ambitious, requires like cloud power and stuff like that. Not like in the Crackdown context of cloud powered destruction, just the cloud, like World of Warcraft runs on servers, that kind of thing. I think whenever people talk about cloud, people think like you're thinking about made up, mechanics that don't work in reality. But when I talk about the cloud, I'm just talking about server based game, connected server based game like Destiny or like World of Warcraft. Um, but again, don't want to give away too many details. This game's really far away. I don't think it'll be announced this year. Maybe with a CGI trailer because um, I believe it's greenlit now and the development's going ahead. But when I heard about this in February, I don't think it had even been approved yet. I could be wrong about that, but that was my guess. But it does seem like this project's ongoing. It's been approved and it's on the way, and it's going to be a few years away. But who knows? Maybe we'll see CGI. Maybe we'll see some information about it this year. Maybe at E3 they'll do a CGI thing, similarly to how they did Fable CGI, and that seems to be far away. Especially since a lot of people seem to know about it now. I don't think it's going to be easy to keep a lid on this. So for my money, I think they should just do a CGI. I mean, I know it's not easy to just make a CGI out of thin air, but I think they should maybe put it out there, announce it, and then build it with the community to some degree. But yeah, that's yeah, yeah. Typhoon's way more likely because it's further along in development. It's closer to being released, and I haven't really posted any details of the Typhoon emoji game because, again, I don't think that information's out there yet. I've certainly seen no indication of that. But who knows? But that game is much closer, and I do think we'll see the Typhoon emoji this year at E3. But you won't know it's anything to do with Typhoon because Typhoon is its code name. So you when you see the game, you won't know immediately that it's got anything to do with Typhoon. So you'll have to look at my Twitter for that. Yeah. No. Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline, and there's two games that I haven't even talked about yet. That I'm aware of, and that doesn't even include the potential partnership with Hideo Kojima, which is one of
Oh
Jeff
shit!
Grubb's.
I just realized I was muted.
Oh,
I guess that
it was
whole
muted.
time I was muted. Wow.
You were muted the whole time.
I guess so. I guess
I could hear you.
I know because I don't I muted Discord, but not not OBS.
Oh, great! So
Yeah.
the whole audience were just like, "Say, this is why I should open chat so I can actually see." But I get distracted and then I don't hear what you say.
You just want to
Um,
play Resident Evil. My bad, everybody.
Gotcha.
I had my mic muted because the dog was going crazy upstairs, and I didn't want you to hear. I didn't want you to hear him, so I just wanted you, to hear to hear Jez when he was talking about Project Dragon. But
That is hilarious.
that's my bad, and that usually doesn't happen. I'm usually on top of that, but I guess I completely forgot. I don't even know how long I was muted for. How long was I muted for? How long was I talking, Jez?
Fair while, about 2-3 minutes.
No way. Was it really that much?
Yeah. Wow. You were talking about how. Okay, so for those who didn't hear, Rand was basically talking about how there was a drought last gen towards the end. Microsoft had no games, and it was, it really hurt them. But it looks like we've got a lot of games in the pipeline now. And then I brought up the fact that I can edit this out of the version that goes live.
People are saying I was talking for 5 minutes. That couldn't have been that long, was it? Oh man, I feel horrible. I feel horrible. Like I was getting text messages from a couple people in my family about stuff, and I was looking at other things, and I didn't have the chat open. And I'm sure if I had the chat open, I would have realized it. Nathan says I was muted for 2 full exchanges. Yeeks. 2 full exchanges. Wow.
Oh wow, that's terrible. Well, I blame Rand entirely for this.
Yeah, that was my fault.
Good job, Rand.
That was my fault.
Good job.
No, what was I saying? I was just saying that that it's super interesting to see IO Interactive branch out from Hitman, right? It's a completely different game than they've ever made before. And then how Xbox it's another RPG for Xbox. So you have these variety of like different types of RPGs, from Avowed to Elder Scrolls 6 to this game. And that, one of the issues I had with Xbox One this generation was the lack of games later on in the gen, 2017, 2019, when there was a lack of funding by Xbox.
Mr. Myerson, who is no longer at Microsoft.
So, in 2017, you only had Halo Wars 2 and Super Lucky's Tale, and in 2019, you had... I feel like such a fucking idiot. Oh my god. I feel so dumb. I feel like if I had just had, because I was doing so many different things while I was talking, because somebody was texting me, and I was getting DMs from people about something, and I was just like, okay. And then I was like, I'm going to bring up chat in a second, because I only have one monitor right now. And, I'm like, yeah, hopefully what I'm saying is making sense. And then I bring up, and I think somebody hit us up in the Discord that we're in, and I noticed, and he's like, you're muted. And I'm like, no, what? And I looked at OBS, and I'm like, oh, goddamn, I was muted, son of a bitch, because my dog was going nuts upstairs. Son of a bitch.
What point in the video is this? Because I'm gonna have to edit it out, the recorded version.
It's about oh geez, I can't even tell. And we lost a bunch of people to like an hour 10-minute mark or something. I guess just listen to the.
I blame him.
I have literally 8 DMs too. I'm looking through my Twitter right now. It's just literally 8 DMs. Like, oh my god. Well, something's bound to happen wrong. And you've been doing this 171 times. Been doing it for 4 years. Something is bound to I'm such an amateur. Like, geez, man, how did I screw that up so bad? I feel horrible now.
How many people left?
I mean, like 100.
That's funny.
I mean,
well, shit happens, right?
yeah. I mean, the big thing is Project Dragon. The thing that you leaked. So I mean, you at least people heard you, say what you had to say about the game. Now, one of the other things you talked about was a little car with the Mexican flag, which then Jeff Grubb said, Forza Horizon 5 coming to Mexico. Is this true, Jez?
Yes. So Forza, this is another thing that was out there, and I was like, oh man, I gotta put it out there now. But yeah, Forza Horizon 5 does seem to be in Mexico. I pretty much hard confirmed that. So yeah, that appears to be the location, which is pretty cool, right? There's a huge variety of, landscapes and locations that they can tap into with Mexico. So I think that should be interesting.
Joel Mead says, Randall Thor 19, the man with the million muted minutes. Would you rather hear Shakespeare and Rand than no Rand at all? Appreciate all you do. Yeah, like sometimes when the dog barks, I always try to mute and on my end so you guys don't have to hear him bark. So, or even when the phone rings, and I'm usually right on top of it, and I just don't know why it didn't happen this time. And someone's like, "Oh, you guys, both of you don't watch chat. That's horrible." No, I always have chat up. I just said there's a whole bunch of different stuff going on here, and I had chat minimized because I was getting texts from my family. Like my dad's sister died, so I had a bunch of people hitting me up on my phone. So I was kind of like,
right there, man.
Yeah, thanks. It's it is what it is. I mean, she was she was getting up there in age, but yeah, it was just I had minimized the chat window, and I was kind of looking at my phone because I had like 6 text messages, and I was just like, huh, what's going on? And I was reading the stuff and still kind of like speaking, looking at the phone, and then I was looking around on the computer, and it was just like, oh, okay, like I got to bring chat back up, but that normally doesn't happen that often.
If that happens again, just tell me to open chat. In fact, I'll just open it now, just in case.
Yeah, Reclaimer says you failed, Rand. Need to start the show over again. Yeah, we need to start over. And thank you guys for the condolences. But yeah, it's oh well, at least there's a goof. You guys can always yeah. Anyways, so Forza Horizon 5 in Mexico. Pretty much happening. I think that's going to be an interesting location because there's a lot of different things they can do there. You got like cities, you got a nice countryside, desert, mountains. I'm still I still think that game's coming this year, and I think it'll be revealed at E3. So hopefully we see it. Tom Legg wants to know if Forza Horizon 5 will be cross-gen. What do you think, Jez? You think it'll be cross-gen?
Forza Horizon 5, I think it'll be cross-gen. I do think that. Man, I got a load of DMs too about you being muted. Oh my god. Well, I've got chat open now, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. So yeah. See, this is the problem. I rely on Rand to do all the heavy lifting, and then I just show up and chat.
Yeah, Jez plays games and just chats with me. I got like literally 10 windows open on here. I got Discord open. I got the chat open. I got OBS. I got like the live streaming thing. I got my notes and everything. Getting a whole bunch of stuff here.
Shit happens, man. Let's just pick up, move on, and let's.
So Forza Horizon 5 cross-gen. Yes, no. Yes. What do you think? Yes, I think so too.
I think it'll be cross-gen. Like the engine's scalable. This is the thing about x86 is that the engines are scalable. We live in different times now, stuff like that, and also a lot of the new features for Xbox, DirectX 12 Ultimate and stuff like that, they're not necessarily fully optimized and ready to go yet. I think so. I think at this point, there's no reason to cut off 30 million gamers with an x86 version that's arbitrarily just restricted to the next-gen consoles, especially, Rand, because there's a semiconductor shortage and they can't bloody get any stock of them out. So, until they've got a good supply of next gen semiconductors for the next gen processors and stuff like that, there's honestly an argument to just have no next gen only games. There really is that argument, I think. You can, make what you want of that, but I think the semiconductor shortage is driving a lot of this cross gen stuff, and we're going to see it from both sides. We're going to see Sony do cross gen. We're going to see Xbox do cross gen, and it's just symptomatic of this crazy semiconductor shortage. So yeah, I think it'll be cross gen. I think Motorsport probably as well will be cross gen. I think we know Halo Infinite's cross gen. I wouldn't be surprised if like games next year cross gen too, just because of the semiconductor stuff. So
well, I mean, Xcoin says Motorsport will start next gen with the new Forza with the new engine. You know Forza Motorsport's in flighting right now, right? They have people playing it. They are flighting an Xbox One version of Forza Motorsport.
I've
seen the flighting notes, the patch notes and stuff. There is an Xbox One version of Forza Motorsport, but I think it's not. I don't think it's been decided by Turn 10 yet if they're actually going to release an Xbox One version of that game.
Okay. Well, I've heard that. I heard that there is an Xbox One version of the game. I heard that through, the Microsoft Store delivery system, which is a bit leaky sometimes. So I did see that that version of the client. So there is a chance that they could release that version. There is a chance they could just decide not to release that version. For me, I think they will release that version, but it's probably inspired by the semiconductor shortage. Because, like I say, there's no stock of any console right now.
I think they're probably just building the game, and like you said, like there's not that many Series X's and Series S's out, and some people may only have Xbox Ones, and they're trying to build Forza Motorsport with the community, and a lot of the community may only have Xbox One, so they may be doing certain things. Tweaking certain things with people on that console, but they may not actually release that version of the game whenever it comes out, maybe next year. But there definitely is right now an Xbox One version of Forza Motorsport being played by people and testing. So that's 100% true.
Yeah.
So, what else we got here? Jeff Grubb, friend of the show, talked about Coalition maybe working on a new IP. Jez, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I didn't actually look into this too much. Can you tell me and the chat exactly what he said?
Yeah, so he said in one of his recent Games Beat messes or whatever that
Game mess.
Yes, that's what he calls it. He basically said that they were helping on Halo Infinite, which they have been. They've been helping on Halo Infinite. They're also working on Gear 6, which we knew about, and that they were also spinning up a new IP. And at the time, Jeff was saying that it could be Star Wars related, but I watched his podcast today, and he pretty much said it's definitely not related to Star Wars. So it sounds like a new project was definitely in the works, which is something I've wanted to see from them for some time. And I remember talking to somebody at Xbox who told me that he felt Gears needed a break, and I do think when Gear 6 comes out, I do think they'll put it on ice for a bit, and they'll go something new, maybe a new franchise or something different, and maybe they'll come back to Gears later. I mean, I know you love Gears. I know a lot of people love Gears, and I do like the Gears franchise, but I think it's a little bit long in the tooth at this point. They've been basically putting them out once every 3 years since 2006.
I'm not opposed to Gears taking a break. Like it does need a sort of a kick in some way, similar to Resident Evil 7 did. New perspective maybe. I wouldn't say no to exploring, first person spin-off or something like that, maybe for Gears. I think one of the I was speaking to someone recently from a major AAA game studio, and they were saying as the franchise gets older, they become harder and harder to make because you have to pay attention to trends in the industry, while at the same time building a game around fan expectations. I think Gears definitely suffers from that right now. Everyone in the community expects Gears to be a very specific way with the wall bouncing and stuff like that, especially in multiplayer. And Resident Evil almost got the same way, where there was sort of like, well, we want to capitalize on some of these new trends. And Resident Evil 4 did it pretty well. They cited Gears of War as inspiration to some degree for Resident Evil 4, which is funny. But, or was it the way around? I can't remember. But what I'm saying is that they had to change things up for Resident Evil 4. And then it got long in the tooth again, and then they changed it up again for Resident Evil 7. So it's just the way franchises evolve in a certain way, and they have to adapt to, the trends of the industry. I think Gears can take a break and come back with a new mindset. I wouldn't say no to a first person Gears, honestly. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with some of that stuff.
I would love to see what the Coalition can do when they're not essentially constrained by the design gameplay decisions of Gears, right? Gears has to look a certain way. Gears has to play a certain way. It has to feel a certain way. I would love to see what the Coalition can do when it's like we can create something brand new and we don't have to do what Gears does. So, I'm totally looking forward to that. I hope they actually push through, finish Gears 6 and then do something brand new. And now I'm constantly checking OBS to make sure I'm not muted and people can actually hear me. Now I'm got a little nervous. But yeah, there was also the report.
It's like some people are saying in chat that it was Resident Evil 4 that inspired Gears or whatever. But maybe I got that mixed up.
It was, yes, it was Resident Evil 4.
Yeah,
Cliffy B was.
It came out before. Yeah. But I was just saying, like, well, that's exactly what I mean. It's like Resident Evil 4 did very, very vastly change up the formula, and to their credit, it was super popular. Resident Evil 6, not so much, because people were like, well, take it back to the old style, and they tried to do everything together and it didn't work, and then, we got in this situation where it's weird. It's like I say, franchises get more tough to make as they go by, because you have to balance trends with what people expect and all that kind of stuff, but it is what it is. I think Gears can take a break, and I'm interested to see what this new Coalition IP is.
Yeah, there was also, like I said, Jeff originally said it might be Star Wars related, but it sounds like it isn't. But Mr. Matty Plays, who's also he has his own YouTube channel. He's also a co-host of the Defining Duke podcast with ACG. He mentioned how he knows that there is a studio of Xbox that is working with Lucasfilm on a Star Wars project. So,
I've heard recently.
Ooh, get it so we can get some clickbait websites to write this out. Journalist insider Jez Corden of Windows Central says that he heard recently that Xbox Game Studios may be working on a Star Wars IP. That's not really a good title, but we can clickbait it up for maximum views.
Maximum clickbait, yeah. Like, well, this is a low grade rumor because I can't remember where it came from. It's one of those sort of rumors that rattles around in my head, and I'm kind of like trying to think. I can't remember where I heard this. But maybe this is already out there. But I feel like, wasn't it ZeniMax Online Studios that were working on Lucasfilm?
I mean, there's been some.
Isn't that the rumor?
There is a rumor that yeah. I mean, I've heard the same thing, but they are making a new game. But they did say it was a new IP, so maybe it's not Star Wars related. I don't know, but.
It could be like a new IP.
A new IP within the Star Wars. Yeah. I guess it could be something like that. I mean, there's a lot of studios they could be working on. We know they're working on a brand new game. Been told recently, because I thought, well, maybe ZeniMax Online Studios, since like the whole Online Studios part of their name, that they could just continue to work on MMOs, right? Elder Scrolls Online. But then I heard that it's not necessarily going to be an MMO. It actually just might be a regular game with obviously some online components. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. But I don't know. It definitely seems that like Lucasfilm is making a lot of deals with a lot of different companies to, make a lot of different Star Wars games or Indiana Jones games. We know Machine Games is doing indie.
That's so
So
cool.
is it possible that they also had already something negotiated for ZeniMax Online's next game?
Yeah, I would. That's because I've heard rumblings about that. That's where I'd stake my bet right now. Is that some kind of online game, like Star Wars: The Old Republic is a Star Wars MMO that EA make. I don't know if have you heard of that.
Yes.
So like,
You're
but it's
talking about the
very
one
old.
that BioWare makes, right?
Sort of. BioWare sort of makes. I don't know if it really is BioWare at this point, but I don't know. They make Star Wars: The Old Republic, which is sort of a reskin of some existing weird MMO engine. I can't remember what it's called, but that's super old. That game is damn. That is old. So I think at this point there is space for a new Star Wars game that isn't so old, but at the same time it could be anything. It could be any studio. What if it's 343, man? What if they're shelving Halo because it's no good? What if they're making a Halo Star Wars shooter?
I mean, like a Republic Commando or something. That would be, God, that would be super cool. I doubt it'll be revealed at this year's E3. Just like the Kojima game probably won't be. I think that's more of a Game Awards type thing. But like a first-party exclusive Star Wars game would definitely be. That would shift some eyeballs in the same way like Sony's exclusive Marvel game with Spider-Man. Like say what you will, but like Star Wars is a big franchise, and if you could somehow have one of your premier studios work on a exclusive Star Wars game, that is big news. That is huge news. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see what goes on with that. Wolf says, "Hey, Jez and Rand, I've been listening for a while, and I have a couple questions. Which Xbox first-party games do you think will or won't be at E3? And which third-party games do you think will come to GS next?" I'm assuming he means Game Pass. We're gonna have to do one of these E3 shows in the lead up. We don't even know when Microsoft is actually going to do their show. Could it be the 12th or the 13th? I guess what first-party games do we think will be there? Halo Infinite's a shoo-in. I think Forza Horizon 5 is a shoo-in. I think Age of Empires 4 is a shoo-in. Starfield, I think for Bethesda is pretty much a lock. But then you start thinking about other titles, like I think it's more easy to say which ones I don't think will be there, and I don't think, because I've been saying for a while that I think this E3 is going to focus on 2021 and 2022, and if something's coming later than that, it won't be there. So I'm not expecting Fable or Perfect Dark and potentially Everwild this year. With that said, like Avowed, Hellblade 2, I think will be there, and then on Bethesda's side, like a Wolfenstein, Arcane's new game, stuff like that. What do you think, Jez?
I want to believe that Microsoft goes out on a limb and announces a few things further out. I want to believe that. I wouldn't bet against you in that context, but I just want to believe, man. I want to believe that they'll show gameplay of things that are further out. Because I do think there's still this narrative that Xbox can't deliver. There's still this narrative that they can't deliver, and I think like to get people excited about the brand, you have to show the confidence to show things that are a bit further out, because there is this whole narrative that Microsoft can't deliver. So I would like to see stuff that's further out. Personally, will that happen? Maybe not, but that's what I'd like to see. But I'm with you. That's probably what I want, and what's actually going to happen are two very different things. So I would go with what you say ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it really depends. I mean, they do have the two shows, so they could show a lot. I don't know. I think like Perfect Dark and Fable are just a couple years away, and I don't think it really makes sense to show any more of that stuff. But it does make sense to show like gameplay trailers for games that are coming this year and next year. But the big focus will be on Halo Infinite and probably Forza Horizon 5, and then like Starfield if they're all coming this year, and then the other ones will have, you know, trailers or whatever. So I'm sure you'll probably hear more about the show the closer we get to the show. I probably will too as well. So that's just kind of my initial take on it right now. Opithian says, hey, any clues to what in Exile's up to? Brian Fargo did put out a tease saying like he's looking at the graphics in his next game and he's super excited, but we won't hear for it for a while. Wasn't the rumor that they're working on some steampunk RPG, like a sci-fi steampunk game or something?
That was the rumor. I have no idea if it's true. It's really interesting, like, to think about rumors. Like Compulsion, for example. Compulsion recently put out concept art. Compulsion Stirs, and one of the game directors said that they're really impressed with the animation quality and they're hiring new people and stuff like that. So it definitely sounds like Compulsion is, you know, moving forward with whatever they're working on too. It's cool to see. There's movement, there's stirring. I kind of want to believe that the fact that they put concept art out is a precursor to fully revealing the game at E3. I want to believe that. Will it happen? Maybe not, but it's what I'm going to believe, man. I want to believe.
Anyways, I do have a couple super chats I missed while I was muted. A whole bunch of people said I was muted, from Rick Gaffney to Brett to George to the friendly neighborhood Blue Shell. Thank you guys. I appreciate that.
Thank you guys for explaining how fail I am.
Yeah, how much horrible I am. Saji Caesar says, you're playing Pokemon if you lose that Starfield bet. No, sir. I'm not playing.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
No. See, now you give him an idea.
Snap,
no.
baby. Have you not tried Pokemon Snap yet, Rand?
No, I'm not playing Pokemon Snap. I don't care.
Oh, man.
I don't care. Georgie says, anyone else think Microsoft is focusing too much on multiplayer? Are there any of these projects single player? Will Avowed, Perfect Dark, Fable, Hellblade, third-party exclusives be single player? I think Avowed single player. I think Hellblade single player. Fable will probably have some sort of co-op stuff, but I mean, all the Fable games sort of did. Perfect Dark will probably have some multiplayer component, but it's definitely going to have single player stuff.
Yeah, these games are going to have. There's going to be a lot of multiplayer because that's what people want. You know, that's what sells a lot and makes a lot of money. But you know, this is the cool thing about Game Pass is that there's this whole sort of having variety is the spice of life thing, right? Netflix caters for every single niche as much as they can, and Game Pass will do the same. So there will be single player games. Hellblade will probably be single player, I would have thought. Maybe have some like asynchronous kind of multiplayer stuff, soft multiplayer, kind of like remember the Watch Dogs 1 multiplayer stuff where you could hack other people.
Mm-hmm.
I quite like that. I quite like that as a little side objective sort of thing. But yeah, man, you heard Gaming Forte says, Mercy, all I hear was Jez's breathing for 4 minutes. I thought my microphone, I tried to set my microphone not to pick that up. Man, I got a bunch of ads on Discord.
Can you imagine people that like tune into the podcast and all they hear was just your breathing because I was muted? Man,
yeah.
Shout out to you, Forte.
I'm gonna cut all that shit out from the Spotify version.
Yeah. King 2002 says the perfect E3 for me is a Halo campaign and multiplayer reveal, Hellblade 2 and Fable gameplay, Kojima game announcement, and a Battlefield 6 reveal for Game Pass. That'd be pretty sweet. Zagoon says, I just want to see some games from Xbox this year, man. Tired of rumors. I just want to see and play some new stuff from them. Hey, pretty much, I feel the same, man. You know, I like, you know, hearing the rumors and seeing what Xbox is doing for the future, but I definitely want to see, you know, the games. And, you know, it's like, you got all these studios. It's time to show what some of them are doing, and not just CGI trailers, but gameplay and put some release years on them, right? That was the other thing about last year was like every game didn't even have a year attached to it, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's nice to hear that Xbox is doing all this stuff, but at the same time, it's like, I want to see some of this stuff come to fruition now, you know, this year.
Desperate,
you know what I mean?
I am absolutely desperate to see Hellblade.
Me too. Hellblade 2. That was my biggest disappointment from last year was Hellblade 2, they didn't show anything new. It was just like, hey guys, we announced Hellblade 2 last year, and here's some footage of us walking around Iceland, and see ya. And it's just like, really? Oh, come on. Like, I love Hellblade, and I can't wait to see what Hellblade 2 is going to be all about. So, Friendly Neighborhood Blue Shell says, if Rand is wrong about not being an insider, we can just lock him in a Nintendo room. In reality, the media always picks and chooses statements for an agenda. I mean,
and
that is true.
Would you go to Super Nintendo World with me?
Huh. What is Super Nintendo World, like the theme park thing?
Yeah. Would you go?
Interesting.
There's this whole sort of augmented reality app where you can collect coins like Mario, where you're walking around the park. Sweet.
I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. I wouldn't want to go.
Oh man.
Jonathan G says, since Halo Infinite multiplayer available on the original VCR Xbox One, do you believe one day we'll see Halo Infinite free to play game on mobile? Well, I mean, like, Halo Infinite is free to play on mobile. Well, technically it's not free to play on mobile, is it though? Because you do have to have a subscription to Game Pass to be able to play it.
You need to be subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate, which includes Xbox Live Gold, technically speaking. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Didn't they announce the multiplayer was free to play?
They did announce the multiplayer was free to play. So, presumably you'll be able to play that on mobile without needing to subscribe to Game Pass, right?
If they could release a separate cloud client for Halo Infinite. If you're gonna do that and put it on the Google Play Store as a separate entity, Halo would be the game to try that with. I would have thought, right? I do know that, we've got the whole Game Pass thing, but Microsoft also has the option to put Halo Infinite onto Google Play and iOS as a separate game that streams from xCloud, but is a separate entity on the store. In fact, that's what Apple wants them to do. Apple wants them to sell their games separately rather than having them all in a single store, because Apple are literally insane and greedy as hell. So I think that's something that could potentially happen with Halo Infinite, but we'll just have to wait and see how they do all that stuff.
Yeah, Jez, a lot of people are saying that you just asked me out on a date and I turned you down. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's true. Wow.
Sure, Jez. We'll go to the Nintendo World together. You can bring your Pokemon with, I wouldn't want to be a stick in the mud.
I was gonna call you Randall No Fun a moment ago.
Yeah, I'm Randall muted now. But
Randall muted again?
No, I'm just saying. So what else?
Randall muted.
Epic versus Apple. Jez, did you see all the stuff coming out from PS5 charging for crossplay that Epic had to agree to Xbox hardware never made a profit before, to Phil wanting xCloud everywhere? Like, what do you think about all this stuff?
Man, it's like you said at the start, it's not making Apple any friends, is it? Well, Apple has no friends anyway, but it's not making Epic any friends at the moment. Epic is like airing out the dirty laundry of loads of companies that don't want any of this stuff public. The video game industry is notoriously secretive, and the last thing they want is their emails back and forth about business dealings being out in the public eye. You don't want to see the inner workings of these companies who, they want to be, if they're on the face of it, they want you to think that they're your friends, but in reality, it's all about money. That's the way it has to be. It's a business. So, bit cringeworthy when you think about like how it's all going to go down after it's all said and done. I don't see how Epic wins this, frankly, because they're arguing against capitalism itself, which I don't know how that's going to work out for them. Apple's one of the most protected companies in the US. The US legal system rules in favor of Apple on a range of things in the past. And Apple also paints itself as the good guy, battling for people's privacy, when really it's just to undermine Facebook using their monopoly. Because Apple collects all that privacy, all that data about you as well. So it's been a really fun, wild ride. A lot of hypocrisy on all sides. Been fun to watch, but also cringing for the people. You know, I can just imagine. I got secondhand sort of like cringe imagining, some of the stuff that's come out from all this and how people are reacting to it. I personally don't think Epic has a prayer of winning this court case. What Epic wants to do is they want to force Apple through the legal system to make their store more open. Microsoft has had to explain to a judge that how the console business works. Epic's argument is that Apple sells their hardware for a premium, which means they don't need to gouge developers on the software stuff. Whereas Microsoft and other companies have made the argument that, consoles are funded by that 30% margin on sales or whatever. So it's a bit different for Apple, who sell, outdated hardware for a premium, and you pay for the Apple logo, really, frankly. And whereas with consoles, they don't really make a profit on the hardware; they only make a profit on the software. Whereas Apple double dips; they make a profit on the hardware, and they make a profit from the developers' hard work. So, but again, it's capitalism. It's Apple's store. It's Apple's service. They're, supply and demand. They're supplying a service that people want, and they're supplying developers with the biggest, most profitable platform on earth. Nobody buys anything from the Android store, which has long been the rumor. But Rand, I don't know if you saw the breakdown of some of this stuff, but people just don't buy things on Android.
Yeah, I did see the Fortnite revenue, and like Android was like 0.7 or something, but then even iOS wasn't even that high at 7%. So
yeah, I mean, people, it's a different business model at the end of the day. But
like,
Android is, nobody pays for anything on Android.
What'd you think more of the stuff that was related to Xbox about? You have the Xbox person testifying how the hardware's never made a profit. You have, Phil's emails to Tim Sweeney saying that he hasn't given up on putting xCloud everywhere, which, how's that news? We know they want xCloud everywhere. I mean, it's the whole point of the things. They want to put xCloud on the PS5 and the Switch and fridges and TVs. Like, that's the whole point. It's like, when I saw that, I was like, but like, they've talked about this. It's like, of course they want, like, when they announced the Bethesda purchase, and it was just like, hey, we're gonna put the Bethesda games on platforms where Game Pass exists. Like, he didn't rule out PlayStation or Nintendo, because xCloud and Game Pass go hand in hand. So it's like, I didn't think that was news. Now, I don't know if you saw one of the other emails where they were saying that, like, how they talked optimistically about removing the subscription from multiplayer, which kind of is what we've talked about in the past, about how we believe Xbox Live multiplayer will be free at some point, not just for the free-to-play games, but also for every game. And that, Microsoft has had discussions with, publishers and about it, but that stuff is going to take some time. Like, what did you take away from those specific emails about these things? Anything really?
Well, it's you say it's not news to us, but for that's the funny thing about this court case. Like, some of the questions from the court judges have been hilarious. Like, that one of them was like asking Microsoft, like, so how many iPhones has Microsoft sold? It's like, what? It's like there's a lot of confusion in the normie sphere about all these tech companies and what they do and stuff like that, and also confusion and fear, I guess, in some way. Like, there's a lot of negativity about the gaming industry in general, and and all that kind of stuff. And when you mix all this up in a frankly wild, unprecedented court case, it results in all this huge major drama across the board. So it's interesting to think about. It's interesting to talk about, but it's also like a lot of it, like you say, it's not really news to us. Um, what I take away ultimately from the whole court case is Tim Sweeney doesn't know when to stop. That's the what I'm taking away from it. It's like Fortnite is Epic's entire business right now. Like the Unreal Engine makes tens of millions of dollars, but then we look at like Fortnite. Fortnite's what makes them $1 billion company. And in some ways, they kind of want to protect their future, right? They want to make sure that Fortnite can remain profitable, because there might be a future where Fortnite isn't popular anymore on console, but remains popular on mobile. That is something that often happens in the sort of gaming industry or whatever. Fallout Shelter, for example. Fallout Shelter, super popular on mobile, even though it's on console. I'm pretty sure nobody plays it there. And also Gwent, for example. Gwent had console versions, but they eventually had to scrap them because no one played it on console. Gwent is totally, a mobile game at the end of the day. So if there's a future where, if there is a future where Fortnite is no longer popular on console because of shifting trends or whatever, there might be a chance that it stays popular on mobile. But will that be a viable business model if Apple's taking all the money and Android isn't, making any money? So I guess there's a sort of argument that Epic wants to lower how much developers have to pay to these stores. And, there is genuinely a good argument to be made there. I think Apple is greedy as hell. They sell trash hardware, frankly, at extortionate prices. They sell wheels for $1,000, for God's sake. Like Apple's phones have technology that is already 2 years out of date when you compare it to the best Android phones, at least historically. That's always been the case. And everyone listening to this show knows that I don't like Apple, So it is what it is. But when you combine the fact that Apple sells all this hardware at such a high premium, they pay their manufacturers in China next to nothing, and they, and then they take all the devs' money away, and what do they do with it? They just, pay back shareholders, dividends, and all that sort of stuff. So, but that's capitalism. That Epic Games is literally arguing against capitalism. I don't see how they can win. Like, how do you argue against capitalism? You can't really do it. If the United States, by some miracle, rules against Apple, the next question is going to be, what the hell? What about all these other stores? Like, why does Google Play get to charge 30%? Why does Microsoft and Sony get to charge 30%? And it sort of devolves the whole model. For Sony and Microsoft, if they can't charge 30%, that kills the business, or at least seriously damages the business. It kills the business because, like I say, nobody buys Xbox hardware at a premium; they buy it at cost. So you make all your money on your software. Whereas for Apple, it's not like that. They're making money on the hardware and the software and on $1,000 wheels. So, that's why Apple's the most valuable company in the world, because they're gouging people.
Yeah,
but it's also supply and demand.
But Epic's whole thing in this battle is that Apple is applying their rules of their store unfairly across different like the whole Netflix, like the xCloud app. Microsoft was like, well, we want to do the Netflix thing. And, they told us we couldn't do that we had to have every single game individually rated as an individual download on the Apple Store. But Netflix doesn't have to do that for each of their TV shows. So, like, Epic was trying to point out that they apply the rules differently for different companies. And the reason why xCloud isn't allowed on the phone is because of Apple Arcade. They're trying to position that as, like, the rules. Yeah, it's like the anti-competitive stuff when Apple, they tried doing that with Spotify and they got burned. Um, and the only reason this is really interesting to
Apple
me
is anti-competitive.
is because of all the stuff that's leaked, the emails, finally like I was always curious why PlayStation started to do crossplay, right? Because it made no business sense for the market leader to do crossplay at all whatsoever. And then suddenly overnight it was like, we're doing crossplay. Rocket League's got crossplay. Minecraft's got crossplay. Fortnite has crossplay. It made no sense to me. And then suddenly this week, now we understand why. Because they have they charge a royalty for developers who would do crossplay. Where if and they have the right to audit the company's books. And if Sony thinks they're losing money and losing revenue, then they basically charge royalties to those developers to get their money back. And I was like, okay, now that makes sense. Now I understand why Sony's doing this, because at the end of the day, it's about that cash. It's not about for the players. These corporations don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about me. They don't give a shit about anybody in this chat, right? We are just dollar signs to Microsoft and to PlayStation and to Nintendo and to Apple and Google. They don't care about you. Individuals at the company may care about you, you know what I mean? But the companies themselves don't. So, like, while it looked like, hey, PlayStation, we're for the players. We're doing crossplay. You can play with your friends. At the end of the day, they only were doing it because they were able to have this agreement where they wouldn't lose revenue. And I think people forget about that. It's all about money at the end of the day. They don't care about Rand and Jez and Kendrick or Richard or AK or any of the people in chat. You're just a dollar sign to them, and they're going to get their money, and they don't want to lose any revenue. So I was super. That made a ton of sense when that came out from this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we always said we didn't think Sony would do crossplay because it hurts them. It does hurt their business. Like if you're a kid and your friend who's maybe more influential than you are, there's a whole South Park episode about this, and you should watch it because it's hilarious if you haven't seen it. But there's a South Park episode, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but like basically the kids in South Park are arguing over whether they all get Xbox or whether they all get PlayStation, because we all know you can't do the crossplay thing, and at least you couldn't back in the day. And as a result, it means that you can't play with your friends. And Epic, in some of the leaked emails, Epic was making the argument to PlayStation that they were tearing groups of friends apart by holding out on this. And Microsoft was able to take the position that
hey, Jez?
Yeah.
I gotta answer the door. I'll be right back. Just take some questions. I'll be right back.
Well, okay. Well, I'm gonna keep talking about this. While you be right back, but hurry up because I don't like being my own. But anyway, so it's easy for Microsoft to take the position that they're in favor of crossplay because it helps them. If someone doesn't need to buy a PlayStation because they can buy whatever they want, when you're in the losing position, then crossplay doesn't hurt your business. But if you're PlayStation and more people have PlayStation, then if you don't have crossplay, then their friends have to get PlayStation. The more people that have PlayStation, the more likely their friends are going to get PlayStation. So crossplay helps the loser. It doesn't help the winner. So I understand completely why, they didn't want to do it. I completely understand why Sony didn't want to do it. But it's also kind of like, once the cat's out of the bag that they're charging people money for this, it's sort of like a bit strange, isn't it? But that's capitalism. That is capitalism. And XD says that South Park episode is called Black Friday. Okay, well, go and check that out. But while we wait for Rand to get back, drop me some questions and I'll just field them quickly. Jez, what happened with Bright Memory Infinite and Crossfire X campaign? Bright Memory Infinite is being developed by one guy, so I wouldn't expect to see that for a long time. It's being developed by a very small team, as far as I understand. I have no idea what's going on with the game, but that's an indie game. It's going to be a long time before that comes out. So I think they did get some investment to grow the team, but it wasn't made by much. Wasn't It's not being made by full team, stuff like that. What else have we got here? A lot of people mad about me slating iPhone. That's fine. That is fine. You can be mad. Jez, what is the next 4 gaming events still happening? I want to see the exclusives. I don't know. I never like this. What's next for gaming event that some people had leaked and talked about. I personally, I never heard any information about that. I think that was the GameStack Live event, and some people got confused and got them mixed up. And I think the What's Next for Gaming event was the GameStack Live event, which happened recently. That was all What's Next for Gaming for devs. I don't think this was ever a gameplay event, and I think some people just didn't want to admit that it was GameStack and not something else. But I could be completely wrong about that. Maybe there was an event and it got cancelled and they just decided to focus on E3. But for me, it's a bit weird to have an event and then have another event at E3. Why not just, bunch it all up and have it at E3? I don't know. But yeah, I never heard of this What's Next for Gaming event. That was someone else's report, and I had no information about that. RDX Son of Fett says people are sleeping on Scorn. I agree. Scorn looks pretty cool. Horror game with Geiger-esque art style. That's really cool. Manuel Meza says, Jez, will xCloud be available globally? I mean, it's going to be available in every single market where Microsoft currently is. Because Microsoft is... Okay, so Microsoft is a massive company, right? They're $1 trillion company. Microsoft has many contracts with the US military, which makes it complicated for Microsoft to operate in certain companies. Sony doesn't have contracts with the US military. So when it comes to like some countries that consider the US to be a military threat, sometimes they don't want Microsoft to operate in their country because they think Microsoft's cloud presence could hurt them militarily. So when it comes to the global gaming market, because Microsoft's close relationship with the US military, it actually makes it harder for them to have a presence in certain countries. It is what it is, but there's nothing you can kind of do about that. Richard Monroy asks, and what about the Crossfire X campaign? I've honestly heard nothing about Remedy and Crossfire X. You know what? I might just reach out to them soon and ask for an update on that. Stuff like that. Pullo83 says, Jez, Project Typhoon is open world multiplayer, right? Yes, it is. Project Typhoon is an open world multiplayer game. Chin Up Guy says, Jez, will you marry me? I'm sorry, mate, but I have a girlfriend, so you'll have to put that one on the back burner. Jez, can you release the Battlefield trailer? No, please, I'm afraid not. But I am looking forward to Battlefield 6. I'm a big Battlefield guy. Prefer Battlefield to Call of Duty. So I'm looking forward to that. Jez, are you 100% sure Forza Horizon 5 is set in Mexico and will it come out this year? I have no idea if Forza Horizon will come out this year, but I am, let's say, 95% sure that it's set in Mexico. Could be just Latin America in general. It could be like a wider area of Latin America, maybe. I don't know for absolute certain that it's specifically Mexico, but I do know it's that region. I know that for a fact. Will the revamped Microsoft Store... Javier says, will the revamped Microsoft Store possibly policies allow for more games to have cross-buy option between Xbox and Windows PCs? I think the problem there is that some publishers feel like if they offer a console version... Because console versions of games are more expensive than PC versions of games. Don't know why that is. I think part of that is because on PC you can offer direct distribution. You don't necessarily need to put the game on Steam. So because of the open nature of PC games historically are like anywhere up to 10%, 15% cheaper. So if a dev wants to offer a game on Steam 15% cheaper, but then have a cross-buy option, it kind of makes it weird because console games are often more expensive. So it's a bit weird for some devs, and they have told me about this, that the difference in price between a PC game and a console game is a reason why they haven't done cross-buy sometimes. But for some devs, they don't mind that, and they just price the Xbox game lower, especially indie devs. Stuff like that.
So
It's complicated, man.
What are we talking about, Jez? What I miss?
Okay, so I was just answering a bunch of questions about random stuff. Lots of cool people asking cool questions in the chat, and I'm glad you're back because I'm out of breath now.
All right. Not Evanish wants to know if we have any ideas when Psychonauts 2 is going to release. Did notice that the store page for Psychonauts 2 went up, and some people were able to pre-download it?
Yeah, there was some kind of bug, right, that let people pre-download it, right?
Yeah, well, that makes it. Does that mean it's like almost gold then, or
It must be.
I would not be surprised if it's like a E3, hey, it's available now type thing, right? The game's got to be really soon, so I would say June or July, Evanish, if you're interested in Psychonauts 2. King says TBF, it was 6 months after the Game Awards reveal. RDX Son of Fett says people are sleeping on Scorn. And the Glitch Doctor says, did you guys see that Alan Wake, an Xbox exclusive, is leaving Xbox Game Pass? Doesn't this confirm that Alan Wake 2 is in development under a different publisher? I don't know if that really confirms it's under a different publisher, but Jeff Grubb did say that Alan Wake 2 is in development at Remedy and it's being published by Epic. And didn't Microsoft give the IP back to Remedy recently, Jez? Or the publishing rights to it or something?
Yeah, Alan Wake's gone back to Remedy. So Remedy can pull Alan Wake off Game Pass if they want to. It's their game now. So it's Microsoft's loss at the end of the day. Alan Wake's a great IP and it's a really cool game. Microsoft didn't want to make a sequel for whatever reason. We'll have to see if another publisher can, help that game get to where it potentially could go. But yeah, I don't think Xbox is going to publish a sequel. I would defer to Jeff Grubb that it is indeed Epic.
Yeah,
Epic Games.
Alan Wake. I don't care who publishes Alan Wake. I want a sequel. I don't care if it's Xbox, if it's Epic, if it's PlayStation. I want to live in a world where Alan Wake 2 exists, just like I want to live in the world where Sunset Overdrive 2 exists. Where you really kind of piss people off because Sony renewed the trademark for Sunset Overdrive, but I think it has more to do with them protecting the name and not having someone else make a game called Sunset Overdrive, rather than it points to it being they're making a Sunset Overdrive 2. But you said that would, if they did make a Sunset Overdrive 2, that you felt that they would humiliate Microsoft by doing so. But wouldn't that also just humiliate Insomniac? They're the ones who made the original game in the first place.
Yeah, but you could argue that they could have given it another year. They could have given it a bigger budget. It could have been the humiliate Microsoft thing. That wasn't me saying Sunset Overdrive 1 was bad. It was saying like Microsoft didn't have faith in the IP to fund a sequel. And back when Insomniac were independent, they were saying like the sequel's up to Microsoft. So when I was saying humiliate Microsoft, it's sort of like another one of those, the fish that got away thing. And Alan Wake 2 could be like that too. It could be like a fish that got away thing. So I think it could. I totally see a scenario where Sony could make Sunset Overdrive 2 and sort of and it'll be really good and fund it properly and people will use it. I personally, for me, if it was me, I'd just be like, yeah, well, that's business. But I just know if that happened, it'd be a major talking point, Ran. I just know it would be a talking point if that did happen. So,
it definitely would. There'd be a lot of PlayStation fans who'd be like, look at this, right? But I just think Insomniac's too busy. Like, I think they just did Miles. They're working on Ratchet. Presumably, they're probably doing Spider-Man 2, like the big sequel. I just can't. Them also thinking they have another team there that's gonna do a Sunset Overdrive 2, and like even if you're Sony, would you even want them to do a Sunset Overdrive? Like, wouldn't it just be better if you're looking to bring back an older game that they made? Why not redo the Resistance franchise? Because I think that one was the Resistance franchise. I think was way more successful than Sunset Overdrive was.
Screw it, man. I want Sunset Overdrive.
I mean, no, I mean,
I don't
I
care
want
about
Sunset.
Spider-Man. I don't care about Resistance. Give me Sunset Overdrive too. I don't care.
I mean, I wanted a Sunset Overdrive too. I'm just not sure they're gonna make it. But I mean, who knows? Who knows at the end of the
I
day?
want to believe, man. I want
I
to
know you
believe.
do.
I've got a lot of faith in this podcast.
You do have a lot of faith. You do have a lot of faith. King says, really hope we get more looks at E3 of Scorn, Bright Memory Infinite, Crossfire X, The Ascent 12 minutes, and the other indies at ID at Xbox show. Yeah, I really want to play The Ascent and 12 minutes. Those look great. Those were all games that were basically supposed to come last year, and then they all got delayed to this year, but we still don't even know when any of these games are... like, Xbox made that post in January about, like, 30 exclusives coming to Xbox this year. And I think, only 2 of them have launched so far? Like, Second Extinction and, like, Adios, I believe, were the only 2 to come out so far. Like, nobody wants to commit to any release dates because of everything that's going on, so...
yeah, I mean, we are gradually emerging from all this chaos. Like, the UK's vaccination program has been amazing. Infections are down, deaths are down, and the rest of some other countries like New Zealand and Israel are basically fully open again. So I do believe we're coming out the other end of this, but you're going to see this big dent where all these game releases should have been that just weren't because of the year of work from home chaos. Like, some studios just were not set up for working from home, and it's gonna really show.
Yeah. George says that Colin Moriarty said that they're not making Sunset Overdrive. A Gun says Sony hates their old franchises. Rand, come on. And Jacob says Sony's only making big games. Remember. Kendrick says maybe Insomniac wants to do Sunset Overdrive too. It's possible. Maybe they. I mean, I know Drew Murray went back there and he was I believe the director of Sunset Overdrive. Maybe he would really like to make it. I want a Sunset Overdrive, but we'll have to wait and see if Sony actually wants one. Funchito says gaming development in China is ambitious and growing fast. Will Xbox take this opportunity for Game Pass content? What do you think, Jez?
I think they would like to, but there are huge geopolitical caveats when it comes to accessing the Chinese cultural market for goods. I don't really want to get into all that stuff because it's complicated, and frankly, I don't really feel like I have the authority to comment. Daniel Ahmed on Twitter might be able to give some insight. If we ever start having guests on the show, we should definitely get him on to talk about some of that stuff. But I do definitely, every company sees the opportunity in the Chinese market right now. It's just about whether it can actually work, given the political complexity of accessing that market. Like, if you're Microsoft and you want to sell a game in China, you have to partner with a Chinese company, which obviously hits the margins, right? Which in some cases could make it just not viable business wise. And also, there's the whole military problem. Microsoft has a lot of cloud contracts with the US military right now, which is a sensitive topic to talk about. So it's complicated, is what I'm saying. But I'm sure they would like to, philosophically. It's nothing against Chinese people. It's just it's just complicated geopolitical craziness.
It is. I think we'll see them partner with more developers from like South Korea and stuff. Because I've even seen ID at Xbox tweet about that. Nico says, why do you rarely talk about Hellblade 2 in your podcast? Am I the only one hyped about it? No, me and Jez are incredibly hyped about it, but we don't know much about Hellblade 2. We only saw that trailer, really. I mean, I'm sure if they showed at E3, we'll talk way more about it.
Yeah, it's just there's just not a huge amount of stuff to talk about with regards to Hellblade right now. I actually went out and bought the vinyl record from the band that are making the soundtrack, Heilung, which is just absolutely incredible. And I listened to it about like 50 times in a row because I just couldn't get enough of it. So, but there's just not a great deal to talk about right now.
Yeah.
I guess.
And That's All wants to know, Remedy was basically an Xbox studio. Why didn't they acquire them like Playground? I think by the end of the Quantum Break Alan Wake stuff, I think Xbox and Remedy had a very strained relationship.
Yeah. I did get
And
a sense of that from some of the comments I saw on Twitter and stuff.
2016, 2015 Xbox is a lot different than 2017, 2020 Xbox. There wasn't a lot of money to go around for acquisitions back then. So it's wrong time, wrong place. You know, maybe if that stuff was going on now, Quantum Break would be looked at better if it was Game Pass day one, and maybe they come to some sort of arrangement. But Remedy's also very proud of being independent. Some companies are just like, you know what, we don't want to be bought out. But yeah, from what I understand, like Microsoft and their Remedy's relationship was very strained after Quantum Break, and they're very much trying to repair it and stuff. So Kendrick Star says, will the Typhoon and Dragon IPs be owned by Xbox, Jez?
It's a good question. I honestly don't know. I couldn't tell you. I would now, if Microsoft is indeed the publisher of Dragon, because they might not be. All I saw was the pitch to Microsoft, and then I heard that it had been greenlit. I personally haven't seen evidence, more recent evidence at least, that it's even Microsoft publishing it. I just know the game's being made right now. So, I mean, I'm like 95% sure it is Microsoft, but I just, I like to have every, I dotted and every T crossed when it comes to some of this stuff. But assuming that all my expectations are correct, I would expect Microsoft to own the IP in some way, at least the publishing rights, stuff like that. But we'll just have to wait and see, how it plays out. Like we talked before about how Square, like, even though in the press we heard that Hitman had reverted to IO, but it still feels like the trademark's owned by Square Enix, and Square Enix is still retain some specific rights to that franchise, even though supposedly IO got it back. Don't actually fully know what the details of that is, but it doesn't seem to be as clear cut as people had expected before. So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see ultimately. Like when it comes to leaky stuff, I mean, just the best way to take a leak or a rumor is to just take it for fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't expect it to be true. Don't expect it to be exactly as people have laid out, because 1,000,001 different things can completely change between the emergence of a leak or the emergence of pre-release software or anything, and what actually happens, in reality. So just sort of like, temper your expectations until we get official announcements, which hopefully won't be too far away.
Yeah. DS Oma says, are we going to see mouse and keyboard support with xCloud for the Xbox games with mouse and keyboard support, like Halo Master Chief Collection? I leave that to Jez because I don't know.
So what exactly was the question again?
I mean, mouse and keyboard support on xCloud for Xbox games that have mouse and keyboard support.
Oh, well, Phil Spencer did say in a tweet, and I'm paraphrasing here, so don't take this as Phil's exact comment, but I do feel like I remember Phil replying to someone on Twitter and basically saying the next step is to get PC games on xCloud.
Yeah, he did say that.
Yeah, so obviously that's something they're going to be looking at. Obviously, mouse and keyboards work on Android phones. The whole the whole stack, the Bluetooth stack, is there for that to work. So there's nothing stopping that from happening from a technological perspective. And certainly, with the Bethesda acquisition, what?
People are just trolling you. Like, lol, Juz is telling us how to take a leak. Haha, take a leak. I take leaks for fun. Yeah, Jez, that's a good one. Tell us how to all take a leak, Jez.
Well, first, you unzip... No, never mind. Let's not go there. But anyway, I completely lost my train of thought now.
Yeah, about the mouse and keyboard stuff. I think it'll happen. I mean, they've kind of talked about it, but one of the big
Bethesda acquisition too, though, they bought that Orion tech, and Project Orion, which is sort of like a cloud streaming system for was designed for PC. They showed Doom running at 4K from a remote server with almost no lag. So they have the technology in house already to make that a reality potentially. So again, I think that'll happen. Just go wait and see.
Yeah. One of the big announcements this week was Xbox FPS Boost. They dropped like 74 titles for a total of 97, and a lot of them are 120 frames. You have the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, 120 frames on Xbox, but only up to 60 on PlayStation. So it definitely does seem like Xbox is going to be the home to 120 frames games. How do you feel about the FPS Boost now, Jez? Like when we talked about it from the original announcement, it was just 5 games, and it weren't really any big ones. But now, a couple months later, they're almost at 100. You have a bunch of EA games up there on there. You also now have a bunch of Ubisoft games. Like you have the 2 Watch Dogs games. You have a bunch of Assassin's Creed games. You have all the Far Cry games. Steep is on there. It almost is like they're preparing to put Ubisoft games into Game Pass so more people can experience FPS Boost. Like, what do you think about that whole thing? Do you think it's going well right now? Do you think we'll see another 100 more in a couple months from now?
I mean, I actually haven't tried it out yet.
You haven't even tried it. Okay.
No, I haven't. Part of it is because they're old games that I don't want to play. Oh, actually, tell a lie. I did try it. I tried it with Dragon Age Inquisition.
Okay.
But my God, 720p.
Ooh.
No, thank you. So, how about resolution boost? What about that?
Yeah, I do see a lot more people asking for a resolution boost to some of these games, because some of these games are locked to like 900p, and like on, if you got a OLED or whatever, those 900p games do not look good. No. On your TV. But the reason I like this is because it's starting to make high frame rates more of a standard, right? They go back and they take these older games, run them at 60 or run them at 120, and like I like the idea of 60 being the standard, or at least like what people come to expect of next gen consoles. And there are a couple games I want to revisit. Dishonored: Death of the Outsider. Haven't played that one. That one got updated to 60. Mirror's Edge Catalyst, didn't play that one. That one's updated to 120. So I'm only really interested into my backlog games I haven't played. But it's super cool to see a lot of these older games get the bump. And I kind of also I've been listening to other people talk about this. A lot of people hope Microsoft goes back and starts doing it for Xbox 360 games. Like boost the old Gears games to 60 frames, boost the Dead Space games to 60 frames instead of just keeping them, constrained to the Xbox One titles.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense, right? It's something I can totally see them doing, but it's some more a question of when rather than if at this point. But yeah, man, I want resolution boost. Can you? But that's something that might come with that. What's it called now? Adobe? No, not Adobe.
Fidelity FX Boost or whatever it's called. AMD,
yeah, Fidelity FX Boost.
Yeah.
So their DLSS competitor, So Nvidia has this sort of really cool feature which I used it when I was reviewing Cyberpunk. I used it. It's basically like, uses artificial intelligence to boost the AI of a game, not AI, boost the resolution of a game, and it works really well. And AMD has a competing solution which will be, I believe, exclusive to DX12 Ultimate. I believe, could be wrong about that, but it is one of the RDNA 2 things I think that they were talking about in the past. So when they bring that out, that might be the resolution boost that Microsoft puts a brand on and stuff like that. I certainly hope so, because that'd be really cool, right? I would totally go back and play Dragon Age Inquisition if it had a better resolution, because right now it looks like a Nintendo Switch game. And as we talked about earlier, I don't like playing Nintendo Switch anymore because the resolution's so bad.
Well, that's what Installation 7 says here. It says, do you think that once the Xbox compatibility team finishes the FPS Boost titles, we'll see those games get 4K support, like Final Fantasy 13 and the original Mirror's Edge? I mean,
yeah, I totally see it happening. It's going to happen across the board eventually, and I think like when because it's good for AMD because it will highlight their their processing resolution stuff if they are going to use that for that, I mean, we're just speculating here, but there's a lot of cool tech going into the Xbox, and that's one of the cool things about RDNA 2 that Microsoft. That it was cool that Microsoft waited for that tech, because now we're seeing some of the fruits of that potentially down the line. So
Yeah, Chinook guy says, "Is it true that some Lionhead employees work at Playground? Also, Jez, you will marry me, ooh."
Lionhead employees
At
work
Playground.
where? Sorry,
At Playground.
yeah, it is true. Some Lionhead employees worked at Rare and still do.
Mm-hmm.
The game industry is really not as big as you might think it is. There's like one of the issues in the game industry right now is that there's like literally a shortage of people meeting demand. There's like, if you look at pretty much any game dev website, there are like tons and tons and tons of vacancies for a lot of the bigger devs, and there's not enough graduates coming out of university that are at least like of the kind of caliber that AAA devs want. Now you can argue that they're expecting people to have 5 years development experience without even actually having just gotten out of uni, but that's like that's just a thing that always seems to happen. But yeah, there's a lot of Lionhead employees at Rare. There's a lot of Lionhead employees at Playground, and that's just the UK game industry. It's not that big. Like, everyone knows each other. That's why like they always say like try to be nice to people, because if you're an asshole, people will know about it.
Everybody knows each other. Yeah. Lydia says, Rand, if you run on gameplay footage, can we have 3 hours of Shakespeare playing? You got to see him when I say you want to go outside. He like runs downstairs into the other room, and he'll grab one of his toys and start playing with it until you put a collar on and take him out.
And yet we're here bereft of pictures on Twitter.
I know. I don't take a lot of pictures. I'm sorry. It's just kind of the way I am.
Don't you have like a super expensive iPhone?
I do have I have an iPhone. I believe this is an iPhone 12. I want to say, yeah. But
I don't try that in for a nice Samsung. I think
I don't care. Android, iPhone, they're all the same to me. Like, whatever. Halo Infinite, Jez, the problems. We need to also talk about this. So they announced in their last blog that crossplay is coming, right? That it's input based, I believe. So if you're playing, like, PC guys won't get matched up with console guys because it's based on input, which is great because I don't want to play PC guys. And when I play Halo Infinite multiplayer, there's going to be a field of view slider, all that stuff. It's going to be a premium experience on PC, which we figured. But then there was
I just want to quickly put this out there, because I'm not sure 100% if it actually works, but there is a setting on Xbox Live Privacy where you can flip it and it says block connections with other platforms. And if you turn that on, you won't matchmake against PC on any game.
Yeah, maybe you have to test it out. You have to see if that actually does work.
I'm gonna try that, but I guess that'd be problematic on like Warzone, because I bet nobody knows about it and nobody turns it on.
I think people tried to turn that off and it just doesn't work. Like, it's required to be on for Warzone.
Right. Okay.
Or something.
Well, I guess Warzone's different because it's like huge amount of players, but it just kind of sucks to get completely owned by someone who's blatantly using a keyboard and mouse. That's one reason why I don't play some of these games anymore.
Yeah, I just don't want to play against PC people on console. That's all. Like, if we're playing co-op together and the person's on PC, then sweet. But in a competitive multiplayer game, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But the thing that's getting the most news is because of a former employee of 343 who went on to say some things about the game and about how it has, the vision and scope of the game was huge, but there had to be a lot of cut content, which is like, there's cut content in every game. I didn't think that was anything like newsworthy. Like, there's cut content in Halo Infinite. I got some news for you. There's cut content in Last of Us. There's cut content in like Animal Crossing. There's just not enough time, money, and resources to get everything that you want to do in a game into the game. Things get cut, right?
That wasn't newsworthy.
But like the stuff about the engine and how some of it had to be scaled back because they're also developing the engine at the same time, and that there's a lot of crunch going on at the studio, which crunch sucks. But I think, and there was a lot of people were upset by the news because they're like, oh man, Halo Infinite, here we go again. They delayed it a year and it's gonna suck and all that stuff. And people are like, this game needs to be great, which I do agree. Like, you delay Halo Infinite, it's the premier flagship franchise, right? And you delayed it a year to be like that game. There's gonna be a lot of expectations on it. There hasn't been a Halo game in 6 years. You delayed it a year. Like, people are going to be expecting a great Halo game, so it does have to deliver. And even in that the post that the guy's talking about, he says he thinks the game's going to be great, but just don't expect an epic level masterpiece, essentially. Which maybe this is just me, but I wasn't expecting Halo Infinite to be an epic level masterpiece. I'm just expecting and hoping for Halo Infinite to be a great game. That's a great single-player co-op campaign that's better than what they put out in 5, and a great multiplayer experience for a great game and a great, like, that's all. Like, there's I don't know, you can name on your one hand probably epic masterpieces that come out every single generation. I don't know, like, the idea, like, the guy literally says, yeah, there's problems, there's cut content, the scope was too big, developing the engine at the same time as the game was a problem, there's crunch going on to get it all, like, yeah, all that stuff sucks, but he literally begins it out by saying, I think the game's absolutely gonna be great. It just won't be an epic masterpiece. And I'm like, what's wrong with that? As long as the game's great. I don't know, should I be expecting an epic masterpiece, Jez? Like, I don't understand. Because I'm certainly not expecting what is an epic masterpiece, I guess? Like Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War? Like, if I had to look at the Xbox One generation and think of epic masterpieces, like, okay, it's Red Dead, it's God of War. I would say a masterpiece would be Ori and the Will of the Wisp. I wouldn't necessarily call it epic, though. I would say it's a masterpiece. Like, I don't really think, like, Last of Us 2, I don't think is an epic masterpiece. Ghost of Tsushima, like, I don't think it is. I don't know. I think there's hardly any epic masterpieces that come out within a generation. And I wasn't expecting Halo Infinite to be an epic masterpiece. I just wanted and needed to be a great Halo game.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of concern trolling from people who have no intentions to buy the game or play the game. So that always happens. We talk about that all the time. Concern troll is going to concern troll. I don't think, like, man, if people are shocked about the idea of cooked content, well, this is game dev. Welcome. You know, it's that is just normal. Every single game in existence has cooked content. Every single one. There isn't a single game in existence that doesn't have cooked content, except for maybe like Tetris. But even then, I'm sure, like, they were like, man, if we could get like one more Tetris skin into this, that would have been cool. So, you know, cooked content is like vague thing to be concerned about, frankly. But I could see why people might be concerned, because we are sort of in this sort of place where Microsoft hasn't delivered sort of games that, you know, meet the bar of expectation. And because the game was delayed, there are sort of additional expectations and hopes, shall we say, on the game that, you know, you can say that's fair or not. You know, you can blame Microsoft for that, blame 343 for that. Like, fair enough, it is what it is. But I think this is just sort of, I think this forum post was just a non-issue. If I'd have been awake when our team was covering this, I would have just told them to skip it, because it just wasn't newsworthy to me. Nothing that was said was interesting, and
nothing what was said could even be verified if it was actually true either, you know?
Yeah, and it's not newsworthy either. It's like, this is the AAA game industry. It's a competitive industry, and shit happens, you know. And we've had COVID, so I always err on the side of temper your expectations for every game, you know. I temper my expectation for Resident Evil 8, especially after Cyberpunk, you know, all that fallout from the console version. And I do maintain that I did love the PC version, but, you know, I wanted to go through and play it on my Xbox, but it's pretty rough, pretty rough boy. But that's just it is what it is. Like I said earlier, there's gonna be a sort of 2 year, maybe not 2 year, but like at least a sort of year and a half sort of wrinkle in the page of game dev where it's like a lot of these games suffered issues, and you're going to be able to point to COVID for a lot of this stuff, I believe. But shit happens,
Yeah.
It just shit happens.
Game Forte says Breath of the Wild, love that game. Ugh. My buddy Gopher was like, you need to play that game, and I'm like, I don't want to. I don't care about Zelda. Maybe I'll play it one day. I don't know. One Bad Mother says a great Halo and what the industry considers a masterpiece are not the same things. I actually agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I think no matter how good Halo is, I don't think it will receive the praise of a masterpiece, because what the industry and critics think a masterpiece is not what Halo is going to deliver.
Like a lot, the wider game industry nowadays, they often like games that have some form of social commentary in them, or some sort of, deeper meaning or whatever. There is a push, I think, from critics to try and bring gaming up to the artistic standards of movies. Now, there's a debate to be had about whether that's fair or not. If you want games to be as good as Hollywood, then fine. Should we hope for that? Maybe. I don't know. Personally, I don't really care if games are as good as Hollywood, movies in terms of their narrative, because I personally have different expectations, and I have different personal outcomes from what I want from a game. I want a game to be fun first and foremost. Do I like games that make me think? Sure. But I'm not going to go out and sort of be like, man, I need every single game to be as complicated as, Metal Gear Solid or something, for example. Just thinking off the top of my head. So, it's sort of, and Halo's just not that game. Halo is not the kind of game where you're going to be like, 20 years from now, people aren't going to be debating the nuances of Halo Infinite. It's just a fun kind of, shooter game where you have a little pink gun that shoots magical sparkles. That's Halo, and I think that's okay. It's okay for a game to not be,
there's a lot of love for Breath of the Wild in the chat for an epic masterpiece from this generation, and the reviews point to that. I haven't played
it, so I can't comment.
I haven't played it, so I can't comment on it. Dan Lazario says Breath of the Wild is highly overrated.
I get this a lot, where some people say it's a masterpiece, some people say it's overrated. But again, I haven't played it, so I honestly cannot comment.
Right, I haven't played it either.
I definitely struggle to play an open world game at 30 frames per second nowadays. Do you remember when 30 frames was filmic?
Yeah, I remember. And then you started playing on these new consoles, and you realized 30 frames was trash.
60 frames is the new filmic, man.
Yeah, and then wait till you get to 120 and then 240, right? 240 frames.
Yeah. Georgie says, predict Halo's Metacritic score. I'm going to say it's going to land in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good... I mean, for as bad as people say Halo 5 was, I mean, Halo 5 has like an 85. So, I mean, you would want Halo Infinite to come in higher than an 85, that's for sure. So, we'll see. 9Life says, supposedly Jason Schreier is writing a 343 hit piece. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's writing an article about 343. There's a lot of... I mean, the game was the launch title. It got delayed for a year. I mean, there has to be some juicy story he could write about it. I'd want to know what happened, right? I want to know what happened with that demo, that gave the world Craig. I want to know about the decisions of, when they decided to delay it and for what reasons. Like that would make for a very interesting article, and I would not be surprised if he's working on it. Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe Halo Infinite can be a masterpiece. I'm just not expecting one. But then again, I think expecting most games to be masterpieces, you're just going to be let down. I just want to play a really great Halo game that does single player and multiplayer equally as well. And at the end of the day, you can finish playing and be like, this was a damn good Halo game on par with the Bungie ones. Because the only time I've ever felt that with 343 was Halo 5's multiplayer, where I felt it was just as good as Halo 2s and Halo 3s and Halo Reaches, right? And that's what I want from them, to be like, okay, here's our Halo game. We finally nailed all the aspects of it, and it's just as good as any of the Bungie games. That to me would be a huge accomplishment and a big W for 343 and Halo Infinite. So, I mean, they're going to reveal the game again, you know, in a month from now. Who knows if it's going to blow people's socks. That game is going to be under a microscope again. You know that. As soon as... And that's the thing. Okay, Jez, I'm going to ask you this, because I was thinking about it. Does Halo Infinite open up the Xbox Game Showcase again this year, or does it close it? Because you take a look at what they've done. 2018, it opened the show, right? Very first time Halo Infinite opened it. 2019, it closed the show, right? 2020, it opened the show. 2021, what are we doing here? Are we doing Halo Infinite again at the beginning? Or are we going to save Halo Infinite for the end? Or we do it at the middle? Like, if you had to guess now in position where Halo Infinite would be, like, where do you think they would put it in the show?
Man, I have literally no idea. That's a tough question. I guess it depends on the quality of the game, really, doesn't it?
Like, if they put it first, they want people to be wowed by the changes and how it looked or whatever? Or do you put it at the end just to really surprise people? Like, oh, you know, I don't know. Like,
if it looks incredible, then, you know, why not put it like at the end as a sort of like, yeah, and this is what we've been doing, you know, sort of thing. But if it looks kind of not so good, maybe you put it somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I mean, because you want to open with something high, you know, exciting to get people engaged, and then you want to close with something mind-blowing to get people, you know, to think about it after the fact, I guess.
That's why you close with Hellblade 2 gameplay demo. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would want. Like, you have all a bunch of stuff, and then you just close the show with this incredible incredible, like Hellblade gameplay demo that just blows people away. I don't know. I feel at this point, like, you ain't surprising anybody with Halo Infinite. You've showed it at the last 3 E3s. You might as well just start the show with it again. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't want them to end it again. You know? Yeah. But that's just me.
I like it when you put your marketing hat on.
I mean, we haven't seen gameplay of Hellblade 2. If it's going to be there and it's truly, like, going to blow people's, you know, socks away, put it at the end. Unless, of course, you're announcing, like, a big game for the first time or something. You know, they ended it last time with Fable. I guess it really depends. I would love to be in the rooms for those type of discussions about how they stitch together the show, what game goes in what sections. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. What else we got? Xbox Game Pass profitability, Jez. Do you hate this discussion as much as I do? Honestly.
Yeah, I don't know why this is a thing, because honestly, discussion only really matters if you're a shareholder, or, you know, if you're someone who's got some kind of investment, because you lose nothing. You know, if Game Pass somehow fails for some reason, let's say Game Pass fails and they shut it down. Yeah, we're losing a cool feature, but it's not like you're losing anything you owned. It's not like and yeah, it would be embarrassing for Microsoft, but it's not like it would kill Xbox, I don't think. So there is this sort of there is a weirdness about this whole sort of argument about Game Pass being profitable, blah blah blah, from people who frankly shouldn't care about it. Like, I'm interested from an analytical perspective because it's my job, but I don't understand why, you know, random forum goers are super intrigued about this question when A, they're not even a customer of Game Pass, and B, it's just like, you know, even if you are a customer, like, who cares? Like, it's cool and you're getting lots of good stuff from it. I think where this debate comes from, where this debate ultimately comes from is sort of like, it's a vehicle for painting Microsoft in a negative light. Is the way I view it. And for a lot of people who want to, call into question Microsoft decisions, it also sort of it lets people paint the narrative that Microsoft's desperately throwing their cash reserves around, or they're crushing Sony underfoot with their massive Azure revenues, and they're wasting loads of money unfairly, and like it's some kind of like epic battle, and that's like Microsoft somehow crushing this little tiny fragile Sony or something. Like that's where I think a lot of this concern trolling comes from. And a lot of people often DM me and ask me, is Game Pass profitable? And I have said in the past that, yeah, it is profitable. Because I spoke to people who know whether or not it's profitable, and they've basically told me it's profitable. But the thing is, it's the context that matters. So when I say it's profitable, what I mean and what my sources mean is that it makes money, and they're reinvesting in the service intelligently. They're not investing tons of extra money into Game Pass that they don't have. If they were, you'd see way more AAA content hitting the game day one. You would have seen Resident Evil hitting the game day one, hitting the Game Pass day one. They're reinvesting what they earn intelligently back into the service for growth. That's how you grow Netflix. That's how you grow Spotify. In 13 years, Spotify technically hasn't turned a profit, but it's got crazy good revenues. And when they do figure out how to make money, they will flip straight into the black in a big way because they have millions of users and a huge platform. That's how you grow these kind of services. Netflix didn't make any money for ages, and then all of a sudden, boom, they made tons and tons and tons of money. So, it's a growth phase. They're reinvesting smartly in what they earn. And also, one of the contexts I've had thrown at me on Twitter is it's not in profit because they bought Bethesda. Because Phil Spencer said in some interview that they bought Bethesda for Game Pass. So a lot of people are, for some reason, attributing the purchase of Bethesda to Game Pass's budget, which is frankly ridiculous. That is not how this works. Bethesda was a purchase for the whole Xbox brand. Bethesda has way more to it than just games. They have free-to-play games. They have mobile games. Fallout Shelter is never going to hit Game Pass. They've got technology, the id Tech engine. That's not going to hit Game Pass. It's going to go to Azure and GameFab and GameStack, and PlayFab. It's not going to be something that hits Game Pass. So there is way more to the Bethesda purchase than Game Pass. It's just that people use whatever way they can to spin this in a negative light. People ultimately do this because they want to paint Game Pass in a negative light. I don't know why they would be so concerned about the profitability otherwise. It's like they want to say, don't invest in Game Pass because it's going to go away someday. Well, if it does, who cares? You haven't lost anything. You get to enjoy that now. And also, Xbox has free cloud saves in perpetuity. So it's like, yeah, if Game Pass did go away, then GG, just buy the game. You still have all your progression and stuff. Who cares? So it's sort of like, it's a non-discussion for me. And to think Microsoft doesn't know what it's doing with its platform. They literally hired tons of staff from Netflix specifically to mimic their growth model. This is all according to plan. So for people to be so concerny and upset about the profitability it's just sort of thinly veiled concern trolling as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, yeah, it's thinly it's a way to attack Game Pass without really attacking Game Pass directly, right? Because you basically call it into question, like, well, they're losing money on it, but it's like, yeah, but I don't care. I don't care that Netflix was losing money until recently. I don't care that Spotify is losing money until recently. That's all part of the plan. And yeah,
Spotify still loses money.
I mean, like, you look at it like if you talk about all the Game Pass expenses dating back to 2017 when they launched the service, yeah, they probably haven't made all that money back. But I don't think it was there. It's like those are sunk costs. Those are just costs associated with getting everything up on off the ground. If you probably look at like what are the expenses of Game Pass this year and how much are we bringing in, it's probably profitable for this year. It's just not profitable in the totality of the entire service. But like, I just hate how the discussion around Game Pass is centered around whether or not it's actually, profitable. When really it should be talk about how Game Pass is going to bring in new players to the Xbox ecosystem, or as Matt Piscatella, tweeted out on one of his tweets that got went a little bit over your head because you were tired, about how it's going to be an industry driver, right? How it's going to bring new people to the entire industry, in that sense, and what type of games Microsoft really needs for Game Pass to make it as big as it is. And there's a discussion to be had about like, are developers going to fine tune their games for a Game Pass audience? Like, those are legit questions and discussions you can have in a world if Game Pass reached 50 million, because that would be a huge number, and that would be something that you could talk about. Like, are there gonna be more games that are a lot more microtransactions, because all the different scenarios you can think of how games could change to fit in the subscription thing. Not, Microsoft's losing money, right? And the idea of like, Microsoft's losing money because they don't tell their shareholders if they're making a profit, I don't think that's not a good enough like reason for me to believe that that's true, because they also don't say Xbox is making a profit. So do you also believe Xbox isn't making a profit because they don't tell their shareholders that it are? I mean, because if Xbox, it's a topic here, but I don't know if we get to it. Xbox revenue was up 50% for the last quarter. It was their biggest quarter 3 of all time. They made $15 billion in the last year, which is the most they've ever done. Like, Xbox has never been healthier. So if you mean to tell me that Xbox's expenses were $15 billion and they made no money, I'd be like, that's utterly ridiculous. So Xbox has to be making a profit, but we don't know, because they don't tell their investors that, in the same way that they don't even tell their investors anything about Game Pass. So I don't know.
The reason they don't discuss this stuff is because they literally, from what we saw from the Apple court case, is that they'd have to explain the whole business. Like, and go through all these like nuances, and also they'd end up revealing details about their partners that their partners don't want revealed. Like, for example, they'd have to reveal how much of the industry is literally driven by Fortnite microtransactions right now, and like in pretty terse emails to Sony, Tim Sweeney was basically saying, we can do whatever we want because we're the biggest game on PlayStation. We know it from all the sales we make on microtransactions. So to get into the weeds of profitability in the console industry across the board, it creates this sort of complexity that just needn't exist. Because at the end of the day, if you're a Microsoft shareholder, it only really matters if the shareholders are getting their dividends, and Microsoft's paying out huge dividends for their shareholders, because they are one of the biggest companies in the world and their stock is super hot right now. Dude, I often lament the fact that I almost bought Microsoft stock when it was like worth $20, and now it's worth well over $200. I would have made a ridiculous amount of money, because Satya Nadella has turbocharged the business with an emphasis on cloud. So it's silly to talk about this stuff, and it's just all it is. It's all about narrative framing. It's about framing this narrative that Microsoft is this company with more money than sense. They're bleeding money away to desperately compete with Sony, while Sony's like, then they don't have to do this and they're still winning. And it sort of what it does is, it's like you say, it makes Microsoft look bad without explicitly saying it. It's a very clever concern trolling tactic a lot of people are using to make Microsoft look bad, to make their listeners and viewership feel good. But the unfortunate reality is, it's just dishonest. It is a dishonest position to take. If you're happy to assume that it's unprofitable and the business is unhealthy because you don't have the information, you could just as readily say to yourself, well, I don't have the information, so the business is doing really well. The difference here is that I speak to people who have direct knowledge of this stuff. So I have extra context, which is why I'm happy to comment about it. A lot of these people just don't have the context, but they choose to take the negative view because that's what their audience enjoys. So
interesting.
yeah,
Very interesting.
that's my belief.
But this will be a thing until Xbox comes out and says otherwise, that it is profitable or whatever. People will just, Xbox could reach 50 million subscribers and people will still be banging the drums that Microsoft's losing money on it and they're going to shut it down at some point in time. So, they just want Microsoft to come out directly, and why won't they just tell us the information? Why are they hiding everything, So, yeah. And it's like the other thing with the investors, it's like, if you're an investor of Microsoft, wouldn't you, you'd be more worried about Azure and Office 365 and all that stuff that actually brings in the money. The only thing you would care about is if Xbox is growing. That's it. Is it growing? Okay, good. Then I'm not really too concerned. But my concern would be with the actual products that make up the majority of Microsoft's revenue. If I was somebody who actually owned Microsoft stock, right?
Yeah. The thing I always think about Phil, the era of Phil Spencer, the smartest thing Phil ever did was tie in Xbox to Azure, because ultimately it protects Xbox in perpetuity. Microsoft's core business as Azure and services to creative industries, so it's hosting cloud stuff so other companies can exist. And when Phil Spencer tied Xbox to Azure to sell services like PlayFab, GameStack, and I bet you they will bundle the id Tech engine and they'll sell that too, just like how Epic Games sells the Unreal Engine. That will solidify Xbox's future, because they tie that directly to their success in cloud, which they are a runaway success story in right now. Unless there's some kind of insane innovation in cloud processing space. I don't know if you saw this round recently, but IBM revealed a 2 nanometer processing fabrication method. I don't know if you saw this recently, but I think that's a world record or something. And they claim that it's more powerful than 7 nanometers and it's more battery efficient or whatever. But, unless there's some kind of crazy innovation in that space and Microsoft sort of gets left behind in the tech argument, then I don't think there's any sort of real concern about Xbox surviving long term.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. The conversation is just as tiresome as the whole, are the Bethesda games going to be exclusive? I hated that whole conversation. But yeah, Kendrick Star says, would Returnal make a good Mega Man game? Potentially, a modern Mega Man game. It could, yeah. Lars says EA Battlefield 6 Game Pass on day one. I think there's a strong chance that it could be the case, especially if the rumors are true about how it's next gen only. There's not a lot of next gen consoles out there, and we just saw that that Knockout City game come to Game Pass day one through Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So yeah, I think EA is going to be very interested in seeing how Outriders and MLB performed, and they performed very well. And with the rumors of the new Call of Duty not being very good, or being kind of a crap show, going back to World War II, a modern combat Battlefield could maybe pick back some market share. And if you put that on Game Pass day one, maybe you regain a lot of audience. I don't know. It's something to think about. I think there might be something there. Installation 7 says, when Joe Staten was helping on Recore and Crackdown, his Twitter bio said creative director of Microsoft Xbox Game Studios. Now it says part of a great team working on Halo Infinite. Your thoughts? Isn't he creative director over at Halo at 343 now, Jez? What was his position?
Joseph Statton's very quickly rose through the ranks of 343. I honestly would not be surprised if one day Statton's running the whole show.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. Thanaro says Halo Infinite will be hated on at first, and people will begin to look at previous games like Halo 5 fondly, the sequel loop of all games. And Funchito says, if Game Pass comes to Steam, I think Steam games on xCloud should be a no-brainer for everyone: Xbox, Valve, Azure, and gamers. Yeah. Jez, did you see the announcement about Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade today?
No, I did not.
So they put out a new trailer for Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, and it ended with Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is a console exclusive for at least 6 months before releasing on any other format. Which haven't I been saying that for I don't know how long now, that you won't see Final Fantasy VII on Xbox this year?
I have no idea. I actually got that press release about Final Fantasy VII Remake, whatever it's called. Intergrade, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And
Intergrade, yeah.
The first thing I thought was, why do all these games have such weird names?
I mean, it is a weird name, but I told people, I was like, don't expect this game to come to Xbox this year, because I was told the plans, that there were no plans. Like, I was told like 3 or 4 months ago that Square Enix had no plans to bring the game to Xbox this year, and that they actually extended the exclusivity of it. So that's why I kept on telling people, like, hey, don't expect it to come. I know there's other people out there saying like it's gonna happen and stuff. I was like, don't expect it to happen, because you're gonna be disappointed. And then today, it doesn't even sound like it's coming to PC this year either. Like, the first time it could come to PC is sometime in December. So yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade only on PlayStation 5. At least until December, and I don't even expect it to come to PC and Xbox. A gun says, are we ever going to see Final Fantasy VII Remake on Xbox, though? It's getting annoying. I think it'll come next year, but it's definitely not coming this year, unfortunately, which means I'll be playing it on PS5. So
there'll come a point where it's like, it's not worth Sony's money to keep stopping it, because it's not selling anymore. So I think like when it stops selling and Sony does an analysis and it's like, oh well, it's not selling consoles anymore, it's not worth the money, then it will come to Xbox. But this isn't going to go away. Sony's going to keep doing this.
I mean, they did it for Final Fantasy 16. They've done it with the Forspoken game. I mean, like, Square finally is like, okay, here's Octopath Traveler, here's Dragon Quest Builders 2, right? These older games that have come out on these other platforms before. But the newer games, the big games, Square Enix is like, we're taking that check from Sony, baby. You know?
Yeah, it almost feels like Octopath and stuff is like almost like a consolation prize to like keep Microsoft from being super pissed at them. But you know what? I'm of the opinion that Microsoft should just outbid Sony. Yeah, I know Microsoft doesn't want to be the bad guy, but I don't care, man. Sony's playing by different rules at this point. I think it's time for Microsoft to be the bad guy, and Microsoft should just be like, you know what, screw it, we'll outbid them. Because at the end of the day, Xbox customers suffer. I might write an article about that.
I mean, anybody that
we're suffering for it.
Anybody that wants to play Final Fantasy on Xbox is not the platform to play it on. 100%. Like, they don't basically come, and if they do, it's years later. And it seems like anything from big new games from the Japanese side of Square Enix, it's like, yeah, the Xbox customer doesn't matter to them, clearly, or Sony's money matters more. So, if you want to play Final Fantasy 16 or Forspoken or whatever, then just you got to play them on PlayStation 5. And you could make the case that, hey, Xbox should be fighting for that more and whatever. And I think they should, because, you don't I mean, that's just a big gaping hole. Like, I know, like, we have the Yakuza games now, and the Judgment sequel got announced for Xbox, like Lost Judgment, so that's coming day one. So that's an exclusive. That would have been a de facto exclusive for PlayStation. But now, because of them bringing all the Yakuza games over, now you got the Judgment. So they're still making strides in that. Who knows about the Persona thing? I think the Persona series will come over to Xbox at some point. Don't know when, but you still have some of these where it's like these Final Fantasy games are basically pseudo exclusives for PlayStation, and they're huge. So, I think Xbox needs to kind of fight for that, but I don't know. Maybe they're just more interested in trying to get some of the other games to come to the platform.
I mean, it's not like Microsoft isn't fighting. I mean, the whole Outriders thing being free on Xbox effectively, but $70 on PlayStation, that was a real show of force about how Game Pass can be, um, you know, deliver such immense value. But at the same time, I want them to fight for these games too. And but it's such a problem because it's like if you dump, if I don't know, let's just say for example you dump 10 million to outbid Sony on exclusivity for Final Fantasy 16. That's 10 million potentially you don't have for a Game Pass exclusive. So it sort of becomes like you're spreading yourself more thinly as a result. It's you know, I suppose it is what it is, but yeah, I don't know how I would go about this myself.
Lucas says Square has me all the way effed up if they think I'm ever buying a Final Fantasy game for full price 2 years after it came out originally. That's true. Like, are they actually going to try to sell the Final Fantasy VII Remake game on PC and Xbox full price after it came out? What, 2 years later, 2 years before? Yeah. And DMCR says, I think it would be great if they did a comparison of Halo Infinite as it was and how it is now, and hopefully gameplay. That would be interesting if they did a side by side comparison. I do believe that would only work if essentially the game was significantly better, like where it's like here's what it looked like and here's what it is now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it'll be that much of a leap. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because you're pretty vocal about this, was the Discord partnership. Microsoft trying to buy Discord fell through, and then PlayStation announced a partnership with Discord through like they made like a minority investment in Discord, like $100 million back in December, and they're going to bring Discord to PlayStation. But no word on if it's going to actually be voice chat and all the stuff, or just like what Xbox currently has now. And then you combine that with like the talks falling through. You said in an article that basically Microsoft couldn't allow Discord to get away from them. What do you think about the shift here, where PlayStation's getting Discord support and Xbox, the talks fell through? What do you think?
I think first of all, I don't think Discord ever had intentions of selling. I think Discord wants to go public. I can't remember who put that analysis out there, but I agreed with that analysis. It made sense. I think Discord feels like they've got a platform that can take it public. They've got tons and tons of users. They could do something really cool with all those users. They could maybe even take on Twitch. They've baked in like some kind of streaming feature in recently that's sort of like Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces and stuff like that. So there is sort of this whole argument that Discord, maybe they never actually wanted to sell, and they like being independent, and they like this sort of they just wanted to go to Microsoft for a professional, thorough evaluation for when they do their IPO, their initial portfolio offering or whatever. So will you buy Discord stock, Rand?
No, I don't think I would.
Okay, well, in any case, I think Discord will go public. That's where I hedge my bets right now. But in any case, I think Discord integration will come to Xbox. I've actually heard that this is something they've been working towards for a while, because we live in the cross-play era, and Discord is the way gamers communicate now, quote unquote, capital G gamers. So, if you want to have that kind of integration, then you have to partner with Discord. The fact that Sony made an investment though to get that integration could be seen as a failing on Microsoft's part, but maybe Microsoft was like, well, we'd rather just own you outright. I think there is definitely an argument to be made that Microsoft dropped the ball here. You can either argue that Microsoft dropped the ball by not offering Discord enough. Maybe, potentially, Discord would have sold if the price was right. Or B, you can make the argument that Microsoft has been really, really, I don't know what the word is, sort of complacent when it comes to their own chat systems. Chatting on Xbox Live is painful. It's painful to set up a party. It's painful to use text messages. You can't send pictures. You can't send videos. It's not easy to send any links. It's just terrible. Whereas Discord is like this whole social network now with public servers. The biggest server on there is Minecraft, I believe, or at least it was at some point. They've got all these streaming tools. There's bots integration. There's like public. Every big game company and publisher, every big game has its own Discord server. Where Microsoft has this like piddling little Xbox Club system, which is dead and hasn't been updated for a million years. And then like you try and send a message on Xbox Live, and it takes like a million years to send. It's so clunky and it's so horrible, and it's symptomatic of it being integrated with Skype and whatever. And Skype just isn't fit for purpose anymore. Like Telegram and WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and Discord, and they're all so much faster than Skype. And then you open Skype and it's like this really slow app from the 90s, and you click around and text box is really small and there's all these buttons that are pointless. Send contacts to the chat. Why is that not in a side menu? And the whole UX of Skype is just terrible, man. I'm just going off on a slight tangent here, but I think the fact that Microsoft completely dropped the ball and didn't develop party. I mean, they've done some upgrades, and like people in the chat are saying like party chat's easy and it's not as bad. But yeah, party chat is okay for what it is. But I'm just saying like it's not as usable as Discord. Like Discord is literally just better. Discord is literally just better in every way than Xbox Live Party Chat. The sound quality is higher. You can do things like make a podcast with Discord. I mean, sure, we could use Skype for that, but why would we? And then if you want to use this stuff on your PC, you have to open the game bar, which is it's not bad, but it's also like I'd rather just use Discord, and I can't even find where the messages are. And if you try and send a message with chat, it's like super slow, and it's all in this little side window. Like, how do I even close the chat? It's just messaging has moved on, is what I'm saying. And Microsoft hasn't innovated in this space. And now because they haven't innovated, a company like Discord has come and has become a threat to them. Discord has become a threat to them. And like I literally wrote 2 years ago now, ignore the threat of Discord at your peril. And Microsoft ignored the threat of Discord. And now we have Xbox clubs, which are terrible. Xbox messages, which are terrible. The messaging apps are terrible. The apps on mobile are terrible. And at least when you compare it to Discord. So,
geez, speak your mind.
Yeah, speak my mind, man. We're in a place now where Discord has damaged the Xbox brand by announcing that they're partnering with Sony and not Microsoft. That is literally the place we're in right now. Discord is so big that we're having this discussion based on the fact that Discord is partnering with PlayStation, not Xbox. And it's because Microsoft has ignored the threat of Discord. So, it is what it is. But having said all that, I do expect Discord to come eventually to Xbox, similarly to how Spotify, I believe, announced the PlayStation partnership first and then came to Xbox One later, after initially being available on Xbox 360. So it just goes back and forth, So, and yeah, like some people are saying, like, you keep saying Discord and stuff like that, and people saying I would never use it, just party up and play games, simple. But like, people are saying it's just like you used to Discord. I've used Xbox Live far more than Discord, man. I barely even use Discord myself. But there's a reason why Discord has become super popular. And if Microsoft is trying to push this whole crossplay thing and, have a sort of world where everyone can play together all harmoniously, then you can't have this world where the app on phones suck and every gamer wants to use Discord. Every PC gamer wants to use Discord, So, I'm not talking about for the average Xbox console player here. I'm just saying it's like Microsoft's aspirations on PC have pretty much been dented by all this, and it needn't have been this way. Microsoft had all the tools in-house to make this good, and it's symptomatic of Skype sucking too, and alas, it's not a big deal for the console player. I'm not saying that by any means. Like, who cares? If you're a console player, who cares? I'm not saying that.
I don't even really care about the Discord thing. I knew you did because you wrote that article. To me, it's just like, I know people want the voice.
That's what I'm saying.
Discord voice.
It's not a big deal for the console player, but for analytically speaking, Microsoft got themselves into this position, they needn't have, because they had all this stuff in house, and now they see Discord as a threat. So
I wonder.
that's
I
all.
wonder what the breakdown was. Did they want too much money? You know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It's interesting. Well, and I know because I wonder just how fully fledged the partnership between PlayStation and Discord is. You know, like right now, like you can link your account on Xbox to Discord, and you can see, you know, what people can see what you're playing. But if PlayStation goes beyond that, and it's more of an actual partnership where Discord chat and voice is integrated into PSN, you know, then that would be really good for PlayStation, and that would kind of make Xbox look a little bit outdated, right? Xbox Live.
I mean,
so
it makes Xbox look outdated, but at the same time, it kind of like it puts PlayStation in an awkward position too, because if people start relying on Discord across the board, that sort of makes Xbox and PlayStation, that puts them at the mercy of a third party company. If everyone stops using PlayStation messages and Xbox messages in favor of Discord, and then what happens someday? Maybe Amazon buys all the shares and then buys Discord. You know, let's just imagine some sort of doomsday scenario where Discord like struggles to ever make any money, and they're just like, you know what, screw it, we'll, you know, buy back all the shares or whatever, and then, you know, sell to some other company. I don't know. Let's just imagine that. But by giving, you know, a rival service your sort of the keys to your kingdom, it's not completely what you want to do, I would say. Like there's no reason like someone like Apple or someone else couldn't come and get Discord one day. There's no reason why Discord might not even start their own cloud service someday. I mean, sure, Discord's already tried and they failed. Sorry about that. They failed miserably. But that might not happen in the future. I would be really skeptical of integrating Discord at the risk of your own platform, but what can you do? They've gotten in that position now because they ignored the threat of Discord, and oh well.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Oh well. Yeah, so I think that's the last topic. I know we had a lot to cover since we missed last week, so the show's huge, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Like, I think we're already at 3 hours and 15 minutes. You want to take a couple questions, Jez, or you want to get out of here? It's up to you. I know it's probably late, so
I don't mind taking some questions if people are up for it.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions they want to drop, and we will get to them, then we will do our best. But I want to thank everybody for being here. Sorry for the 5 minutes I was muted. I'm sure that will constantly keep being brought up, right? We appreciate you. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Google Play or Spotify, I think Jez said he's going to cut out the silence so you guys don't have to listen to it. And if you're on iTunes or whatever, you know, write a review, rate the show. That's how the show gets seen by more people on iTunes and different places. I did check, Jez, and I think we were pretty popular on iTunes. We were like the 35th most popular gaming podcast or something on iTunes.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
I mean, considering that this is a live YouTube show, we just throw up on iTunes and we don't really promote very well. The fact that it's like, you know, somewhat popular is, you know, the fact that still people want to listen to me and you just BS is still just mind-blowing to me. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for listening. If you would, hit the like button if you enjoyed the show, and subscribe if you're new, and hit the notification bell so you're always notified when the podcast goes live. Saji Caesar says, you missed my super chat during your silence. I said you're playing Pokemon if you lose that Starfield bet. I actually went back and saw that, and I did mention that, and I said, absolutely no way I'm playing Pokemon. Now, if I actually made a bet where I was like, Starfield's coming out this year, and if I lose, I'll play Pokemon. If I made that bet, I would play Pokemon. But the thing is, I don't bet unless I know for sure something is true. So I would have to know for 100% fact that Starfield's coming this year. And like I said, I don't know if it is. All I know was that Microsoft is trying their best to have it come out, but there's still a chance it may not. So but then what would you have to do, Stodgy, if I got it right and you got it wrong? You know, what am I going to have you play? You know. Face says, Jez, Xbox's competition is Google and Amazon, not PlayStation. Microsoft in the court transcripts, PlayStation is Xbox competition. What do you think?
Sorry, what? Microsoft in the core transit. PlayStation is Xbox competition. I mean, of course, PlayStation is Xbox's competition. But like Sony isn't Microsoft's competition. Like Microsoft obviously wants Xbox to be competitive against PlayStation, but at the same time, they diversified their business onto PC and onto mobile and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is, everyone's only got, a maximum of 2 arms. So at the end of the day, there's a finite amount of consoles you can play at any single time. So of course, Microsoft would ultimately prefer if you played on Xbox over PlayStation. That's just, that's the business. But competition is good, and Sony pushes Microsoft to be better, and Microsoft pushes Sony to be better, theoretically. Doesn't always work that way in context, but oh well.
That's all says, Jez, do you think Game Pass has helped Xbox in Japan? There seems to be a lot of people on Twitter picking up a Series S.
Yeah, so this is something I learned recently, is the silicon for the Xbox Series S is easier to acquire than the Series X or the PlayStation 5. So, what you might see while this semiconductor shortage plays out is that the Series S is the console that people find easier to acquire, at least in the short term. Will that always be the case? I don't know. But there is something to be said about the value of that thing. As a Game Pass device, it's a pretty cool proposition for $300, right? So
it's gonna be tough for Xbox to crack that market, but we'll see. Georgie says, why do you think Lionhead was closed instead of Rare? Well, Lionhead had put everything behind a 4v1 Fable Legends game, which, according to their internal stuff, people hated the beta. People played it one time and never played it again. And I think they had to make some cost-cutting things, and Lionhead was just... They had built the whole studio around this whole 4v1 thing, and it would be just impossible to just redo the studio to make regular Fable games, and it was just like, they might as well just shut it down, essentially. As for Rare was pretty profitable. Rare, say what you will about the Kinect sports games they made, those actually sold a lot. And maybe it'd be a different story if Sea of Thieves was an utter failure, maybe, but then it came out at a time where Xbox was having more investment, so maybe that also helped, and Sea of Thieves eventually became a huge game. The PUBG, remember, what would you say, Jez? The PUBG of what year, whatever year it was. So
yeah, one day Sea of Thieves will be bigger than PUBG, maybe. Possibly.
Yeah, PUBG is still really, really huge on Steam. I don't know if you've seen some of the numbers.
It's absolutely massive on mobile.
It is massive on mobile.
So maybe Sea of Thieves won't catch up to PUBG.
Yeah.
The point is that sorry, I was just saying that at the end of the day, Rare had a prototype for something that had potential, and I don't think Lionhead did. So that's where everything fell ultimately. I think like there is a universe where both studios could have carried on existing, but I think Microsoft, at the point in time where all this went down, I think Microsoft was kind of like, we have to consolidate and budget and stuff like that. So,
yeah. Gamer by Choice says, if Xbox outbids PlayStation, then the narrative is huge. Xbox is keeping games from poor little PlayStation. As a $1 trillion company, their image is worth more than a console war. Baz says, love the show. Don't be tight and add me as a friend on Xbox. And Keyshawn Thompson says, Filmic. Yeah, we don't use Filmic very much anymore because Jez has experienced the glory of... he's experiencing the glory of 60 frames, right?
Yes, indeed you do. I still haven't experienced the glory of 120 though yet, really.
You need to. Then you can go back to 60 frames and you can be like, oh, now I understand why, Let's see here. Okay. Anyways, Let's see. Let's see what else we're talking about here. Ozane says, "Do you think Xbox is partnering with Nintendo to develop a handheld device for Xbox? Would be great for xCloud and Game Pass. Always wanted an Xbox portable." I don't think they'd partner with Nintendo to develop a handheld device. If Xbox was going to make one, they'd just prototype it themselves. What I think what Xbox wants to do with Nintendo is put xCloud and Game Pass on there, right?
Yeah. I've always thought like what Nintendo and Xbox could do is do like a curated version of Game Pass where it's just the exclusives that can't run natively, like Halo and stuff like that, potentially. But even then, it's kind of a stretch because if someone's playing Halo Infinite on on Xbox Game Pass, they're not spending money on the Nintendo store. So there's certainly an argument to be made that it's not going to be worth Nintendo's while. But at the same time, maybe Microsoft can just be like, well, we'll give you a stipend for every like 10 hours streamed through the Switch or something like that. There's probably a deal that exists that Nintendo would go for, but we don't know what it is and whether it'll happen. I do think Nintendo is more likely than PlayStation, but we'll see.
David says, "Do you think Village will eventually come to Game Pass, or do you think there's a deal in place actually to prevent it?" I mean, it's possible it comes to Game Pass a year, like whatever that leaked Capcom deal says, that PlayStation has the first rights of refusal for the first year. It's possible that because Resident Evil 7 came to Game Pass, I don't think 2 or 3 did, but it's certainly possible it comes later. Eddie wants to know, hey, have you heard anything about Hades coming? And Rand, what is the hardest game you ever played? I think Hades is coming to Xbox. I think it's also probably going to come to PlayStation as well. I don't know if it'll be this year, but I think it's going to come. That game was just too much of a success on PC and Switch.
Is Hades not on PlayStation?
No. Hades is only on Switch and PC.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I think it'll come to PlayStation and Xbox sometime, whether it's this year or next year. But I don't think there's actually an exclusivity agreement between them and Nintendo. I think they just chose Nintendo because indies tend to perform better on Switch now than they did on PlayStation, and that's kind of where Supergiant kind of went when PlayStation was all behind indies. They put Transistor on there and they put Pyre on there. But then you hear a lot of indie devs talking about like how hard it is to get seen on the PSN store, and then Hades came to Switch and was huge. So I think the game will come to Xbox. As for the hardest game I've ever played, I mean Sekiro was pretty tough, and Sekiro is a lot harder than Hades. I mean, on the Mega Man games back in the day without saving, pretty tough. I mean, like I'd have to say recently, the hardest game I've probably played recently is definitely Sekiro, for sure. Let's see here. What else we got? Tony says, is Andrew and Renee coming on the show? I don't think so. We hardly ever have any guests, but maybe one day we will.
Is Mikey Barr the only guest we have?
Yeah, I think Mikey Barr was the only guest we actually had on. So that's why we need to get Phil to come on. Stodgy says, I was talking about your bet on Starfield exclusivity not releasing this year. Okay. Death Singer wants to know if we think E3 will be hype or tempered. What do you think, Jez? Well, Jez has been saying all podcast episode, it's time to believe.
Well, I say that, but I'm talking about like wild things that'll never happen, like the Dino Crisis reboot I desperately want. I always temper my expectations, personally. I don't know. I think like, and this is getting philosophical again, but I think a lot of what gaming is today, and a lot of what gaming criticism is today, is games not making people in their 30s and 40s feel the way they did when they were kids. And maybe games just can't make some of us feel that way anymore. So I definitely like, I love like the nostalgia. Like Resident Evil Village, for example, has a load of great like nostalgic moments in the game, and that's sort of like really awesome. But that's what it is. It's nostalgia. All the kids are playing like Fortnite and stuff, and a lot of game devs are chasing that audience. So I sort of temper my expectations in general now because I'm just sort of like, well, a lot of games that are being made today aren't for me. Like, I hate Battle Royale. I absolutely hate it. Like, and every major game that constantly gets talked about right now is Battle Royale. I absolutely hate Battle Royale. Rand loves Battle Royale. Like, all Rand plays is Battle Royale, basically.
I do like me some Battle Royale, and Halo better have a Battle Royale at some point. It definitely needs a Battle Royale. Let's see what other questions do we got here. Ozane says, "What is Jed's favorite Pokemon game? It better be one of the first 4 gens, or I'm gonna start throwing hands with them."
Favorite Pokemon games? Actually, Black and White. Honestly.
Yeah. He also wants to know how many games Xbox Game Studios has unannounced, which I doubt you would even know. So
I have no idea. I mean, I know about 4 that we talked about on the show, but I honestly, like, beyond that, there's also the Kojima thing, which I didn't know about, and then it's like, what could they have beyond that? There could be even more, So, I wouldn't like to comment on that. I don't know. Hopefully, they've got loads that I don't know about.
what's your favorite Pokemon?
Black and White.
Okay, Black and White.
Yeah, Pokemon Black and White. Like, I actually played that fairly recently for the first time, and it had like a really good story, really cool characters. It was a lot more serious than a lot of Pokemon games, but the one I played the most is Sword and Shield, probably. But Rand doesn't want to hear about that.
No.
Do you, Rand?
Georgie says, "Do you see Epic Game Store trying to get Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft games on their store? Thoughts?" It mentions Phil meeting with Gabe. I saw that, but I wasn't sure if it was real. Is this real, Jez? The stuff that came out today, where it says individual tactics, content, Sony first party titles, offer extended at 200 million MG plus for 4 to 6 titles, awaiting feedback. Content, Microsoft first party titles, opening conversations, internal feedback from Microsoft. Their PC Game Pass leader is against what we're doing. They're effectively bidding against us for content, and Phil is meeting with Gabe at Valve occasionally. And content, Nintendo first party titles, not started, is a moonshot unto itself. Corporate history says this is a non-starter. So is this like a thing that came out from the court stuff?
I have missed that, if that's the thing that actually happened. I actually don't know.
I saw this thing, but I wasn't sure if it was actually like real. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I don't know if it's real.
Yeah, I don't know if it is. I mean, I guess. I mean, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Phil meets with Gabe, but yeah. I mean, we know PlayStation is putting more games on PC, so I wouldn't be surprised if Epic wants them, and obviously you'd have to pay for it, and that's why, if Epic came to PlayStation is like, we want 4 of your games, and here's $200 million, I'm sure Sony would be like, yeah, we'll put a lot of our games on PC for that extra bread, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's all about money at the end of the day. They'll do anything if the money's right.
Yeah. That guy Ozzy says, "Do you think Scalebound will ever come back?" No, I don't know why people keep on saying
no.
Scalebound is dead.
Never coming back.
The only way Scalebound ever comes back is if Xbox buys Platinum, and then maybe they could work on it. But other than that, it's dead. Stop. It's not coming back. I'm sorry. I hate to always be the one to say that, but it is not coming back. And with that, I think we're gonna end the show because it is. We've been going 3 hours and 40 minutes. It's an extra long show to make up for the fact we weren't here last week. So thank everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, we could go for another round, man.
Nah, I'm starting to get a little tired. I mean, a 4-hour podcast, I'm starting to get a little tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm getting tired too. I'm joking.
So we will be back here next week, hopefully on a Friday. Talk about Resident Evil, since I'll finish the game. Maybe even Mass Effect Legendary Edition. But yeah, we appreciate everyone being here. Sorry I didn't talk for 5 minutes. I made that mistake, but you got anything to say before we get out here, Jez?
Don't know. Go and play Resident Evil Village. It's awesome.
Play Resident Evil Village and tweet Jez what you think of it.
Yeah.
And if you want to get stepped on by Lady Dimitrescu. if I said that right.
No, you didn't.
All right. Anyways, guys, have a good rest of the have a good weekend. Keep it gaming, and we'll see you here next week. Later.
Take care, party people.